Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Survivor NSFW Rewind, Professor Tim watches Australian Outback. I am your host, Karen Eisenberg. And we were, like last week, we were trying to play our theme song. It did not work.
Did we not get it?
I'm going to try. Let's try it again so everybody can join.
So good.
Everybody enjoy our intro here. There we go. Let's try this again. See, this is what happens when you let old people have podcasts. Yes, we are live, Tim. Everything's fine. So once again, I am your host, Karen Eisenberg. You have obviously heard from my co-host, Tim Wilson. Tim, say hi and wave.
Hello, wave. I think as I butted into your introduction so much, we should hear immediately from Bret, and then we should find out what you're wearing today.
Okay, we can do it that way. So we have Professor Tim. You're ruining all my scripts, Tim.
I'm so sorry. Let's go. I've got it. Put forward a rule, and I will subvert it. That's.
Oh, is that how this works? Okay, good to understand.
That's how everything works. I'm afraid. It's the grin is simply the modus operandi. It says grin and subvert. Grin and subvert. GS. Some people might think it stands for Gilbert and Sullivan. Absolutely not.
So Bret, this gives you an idea of what you have signed up for, because Bret had asked me to send some links so he could get to know.
Much like that. Greg is also subverting, so
yes. Yes. So we are. Wait, let me just do the intro, and then I'll get out of the way and let you two talk. So we are joined by Bret Labelle. Bret was on Survivor Millennials versus Gen X. He was half of Team Bromance on Amazing Race 31. He has a podcast called In the Drunk Tank.
In the Drunk Tank with Bret Labelle. That's correct, Karen.
Right. And I forgot to ask you what else, but he does a lot of stuff, and we are very, very happy that he's here. I forgot to ask you, I was going to ask you if you wanted to sing our theme song, because you've been known to do that for one of our competitors.
Well, it'd be more of a hum, wouldn't it? Because they don't really have words to it. And I think they should have words to the Survivor theme song, as it's, it's very popular. People love listening to it, but it doesn't have words. I'm going to get with Chris Hammonds later, and we're going to probably come up with some lyrics to that fine tune that we hear every day before Survivor, So,
that'd be amazing.
Yeah, Tim, I got to say, you brought up Gilbert and Sullivan. I believe, did they do the Mikado?
They did. They did.
I love the Mikado.
Have you done alternative words for the Mikado?
Not yet, but I will.
I did some the other day.
Actually, Willow, I think I did come up with some.
Oh no, Willow, that was it, absolutely. I mean, it just screams out to be used for everything. I was doing philosophy with Tit Willow.
Yeah, I could see that. Sure.
Tell me. I was doing a bit of Anselm, id quod nihil maius cogitare potest, but you have to sort of squash it in pretty violently. Tell me, Bret. So this podcast about drinking. What is your favorite tipple?
Well, that's a very tough question, Tim. I mean, I do love. I obviously love beer. All kinds of it. I'm a big every now and then I like a good
real ale. I trust.
Yeah. I like Guinness. I like microbrew stuff like that. But I like your typical Bud Light and Coors Light every now and then too. So I'm not picky. I do love my wine when you're relaxing in front of a fire.
Very good. And in terms of obscure wine, where would your heart be set on the most obscure wine that you could find?
Well, lately I've been drinking a lot of California wine, red wines.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. But white wines, I'm definitely Marlborough. New Zealand. Sauvignon Blanc is my favorite, absolute favorite, and you really can pick any wine from Marlborough. It's going to be fantastic. So,
how wonderful!
Now, I just have to ask Tim. So the podcast is called In the Drunk Tank. It's not. They're actually. Well, maybe you are drinking. Knowing Bret, there probably is a beer popped open. But we're talking about a drunk tank. So Bret is a Boston police officer. So,
my
so
goodness,
we
so
like
what's
to
a
ask
drunk
him
tank?
what things mean.
Oh my goodness, a drunk tank. A drunk
What is a
tank
drunk tank?
Yes.
It's the car where you pick up people, waifs and strays who've been drinking.
Right. So Boston. I'm a sergeant in the Boston Police Department, and my podcaster, so to speak, Larry. He is also a Boston police officer, and he's actually getting ready to retire. He's been on 30-something years. So, Boston was the first police department in the United States, which goes back to 1857. Which we think, in Boston we think we have history, and then I went over to England and realized that it's completely crazy.
Have you been over to? You've been over to Scotland Yard?
I've been across the pond there, Tim. Don't you worry about it. I went over. I actually was. I kind of met this guy in Provincetown years ago. I was in my 20s, and I went over. He invited me over.
Yeah.
And we had a really good time. And I went. He took me to the Tower of London.
Oh my goodness! I've done programs about the Tower of London. It's so exciting.
Oh really? Yeah. Well, so I stayed in Whitechapel. I stayed in the bar. It's actually still there. And correct me if I'm wrong, but they told me that I was in the bar drinking, and they told me this was the bar where one of the victims from Jack the Ripper was found behind. And
well, the Whitechapel murders. That's where it took place.
Right, exactly. But I guess there's a bar where I stayed where it's still an actual bar where, and one of the victims was found there. So
there are some very
so Bret, when you go on vacation, you like to visit like historical crime scenes and have a beer there. Is that what this is?
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm fascinated. That's a case that I think fascinates everyone, right? I mean, Jack the
absolutely.
Ripper, if you're in law enforcement or anything, I mean, you've heard of Jack the Ripper, you've studied Jack the Ripper.
But it's so exciting because it comes at just the point where sort of forensic science was developing.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't develop quite fast enough. So it was about 2 years behind the Jack the Ripper stuff. So it just hence the whole thing is a bit sort of left stranded.
Yes, exactly. So, what I found fascinating about England, and I loved it, was again, I'm from Boston. We have a lot of history here. We have a lot of old buildings and stuff like that. And I've always enjoyed that. I enjoy going to Philadelphia and seeing the history there. But then when you go to England and Scotland and Ireland, you were looking at, like, you're in a building going, this was built in the year one. It blows your mind.
People in Britain, right? Anything that's only 200, 250 years old is not even historic. They think we are ridiculous for celebrating these things that are brand new.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we have a few brand new things as well. I don't know how long they're going to last, but it's always great. I think when you go up to the House of Parliament and you go into that big hall, which that's the place where Thomas More was tried, and you think, wow, I'm standing in history. And then you go through all the sort of Pugin stuff, which is sort of very, very exciting Victorian pastiche, but it's beautifully done.
Yes, it is, and I really enjoyed it. And my friends that I was visiting over there was working during the day, so I would just go out and explore the city of London. Which there's just so much to see. I actually woke up one morning, and it was one of these. How it was explained to me at the time was it was a weird day where Parliament happened to open for something. They had to do a decision. It was like not the normal time that Parliament opened. So my friend was like, "Hey, get down there. You'll probably see the Queen because she has to open Parliament."
Oh, so the opening of Parliament, that happens. Yes. It used to happen every year. At the moment, it's all a bit in hiatus, but nothing. It's the Queen's Parliament. Boris is the Queen's First Minister.
Yes,
Queen's Prime Minister, and so it all happens in her name. So she reads a speech which has been written for her,
right?
The Gracious Address or something, I think it's called. And it's a wonderful occasion.
Awesome. This was 99.
See the state on display.
This was like 98 or 99. So I jumped on the tube.
Yeah.
Off I went. I can't remember where I came out, but I came out right near Parliament. And just as I'm coming up the tube, up the steps from the tube, I had my camera ready, and here they come. Here comes the procession. So I ran out.
Oh my goodness.
I grabbed the picture. There she goes. She's waving at me. The Queen waving right now. And they say there's not many. There's English people that have never seen the Queen. So I feel
I know it's quite extraordinary. Now I have a friend who's involved in that every time it happens, and he's a herald, so he wears one of these strange little tabard things. And I remember when we were at university, we did Hebrew translation together, and and we both got into a lot of trouble with our pronunciation, and we were both appalling gigglers. So we spent time rolling around on the sofa in hoots of laughter, and I think we're terribly disrespectful, really. But he's not now. He's very serious. And he stands in his tights and tabard, holding a wand, making Harry Potter look ridiculous.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome.
It's
very important. But you see the system on display. That's what I think is so fascinating. It's there. It's an icon, and that's what really an icon should be. If you can see it, you don't have to explain it. You can see it.
Yes, and you're seeing history too. I mean, it's the same for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's just
yes and no, because a lot of it was sort of created by Edward VII and a lot of the stuff which we see today, Queen Victoria wasn't doing. But the basic idea of it is consistent, and it goes all the way back, and that's great. So you sort of suddenly personalities cease to be that significant, and you're looking at the rule of you're looking at the rule of law and the way law develops, and the way it's sort of codified, and it's in pictures. And so it's easy for somebody of a sort of simple mind like me to actually understand. I can see it. Ooh, Also, I think when you've got a little lady like the Queen addressing everybody with such command, it's difficult not to find this sort of faintly entertaining and rather humbling. Everybody is playing their part. Nobody is here because they really. Nobody's trying to get here. Everybody's sort of being thrown here, and we're just doing our job. I think it's great.
Yeah, one of the things I tell everyone that I know that goes over to England, I say you have to go to Westminster Abbey. And
absolutely.
I was, a dumb American going over there, had no idea what it was. I says, well, I'll go take the tour. So I take the tour. You put the little things on that look much similar to this, Tim.
Princess Leia has got a lot to explain.
Tim's referring to my ear muffs that I'm wearing, my ear headphones, as I look like Princess Leia, which he might be right.
You are so much more glamorous. So much more glamorous. I expect Darth Vader to come creeping up behind you any minute.
He might. I'm gonna watch my back. So, yeah, I am your father. So,
I was thinking
if Darth Vader was born in Boston, Duke, I am your father.
So I go to Westminster Abbey, and I put the things on. I'm walking, and I had no idea that the kings that I've heard about. Mary Queen of Scots, all these, kings and queens I've heard of over, growing up in history and all this are entombed at the Westminster Abbey.
Yeah,
and
lots of them are there.
And it was
prime ministers and there's monuments. The monuments are there basically because the stonemasons stopped making statues to the Virgin Mary. And what are they going to do now? They'll make statues of the king or the prime minister, and it's great. I mean, the other day I had to go up there, and I had about 40 minutes to kill, and I went over to the Abbey, and I realised I knew the policeman in charge. He was on furlough, but everybody seemed to know his name, and they let me in, and I sat for about 40 minutes doing nothing. Without having to go on the tour. It was wonderful. I sat in that little corner just inside the entrance, and it was delightful. Now, what I was actually doing there, God knows, but it was a time to sort of collect one's thoughts. And it's a great place, and you don't notice all the people moving around. It's there's enough space to actually find your little moment of moment of peace. You're surrounded by some of the greatest art around.
It's simply breathtaking and beautiful. I loved it. I need to get back over there, and I had beers at halfway to heaven.
Come back, but I will have to give you some decent single malt to entice you. Something with an unpronounceable name, I suspect. But
yes, because when I went over there, I probably I was young and I had no clue what I was doing. So I need to check out the BS. I did.
No clue about what you're doing is the necessary requirement, Brett.
I did see a lot, though. I mean, I'm proud of myself that I was probably 22, 23, and I made myself go and see a lot in London. It was awesome. But I would definitely like to check out more of the countryside, and I really love Scotland.
To Oxford, and there's not a great deal to see in rugby, but come up to Oxford. I'll show you around Oxford, and when we could perhaps detour to the rival university that we can't mention. Yeah. Which is actually, I must confess, the more I get to know it, the more I think it's it's doing what Oxford did when I was there. Right. You go to Cambridge. Oh, whoops! You go to Cambridge, and you just think this is what a proper university should be. And it's there are tourists, but you can still feel. I was teaching there last year, and it was lovely. And in fact, it was on a particularly rainy, rather miserable day when I had a really difficult lecture that I got the call about being on the circle. And I think if I hadn't had a difficult lecture, I would have said no. But I had a difficult lecture, and I think I would have said yes to anybody at that moment. What a shame! What a shame students don't realise this, because they could have wrote, "Oh, I don't want to do my essay." Oh, that's fine. Bring it on! Bring it on! Bring it on reality TV. Oh, there you go. I've just been asked. Call this number.
Right, and I read a little bit about you that you had no experience with reality TV whatsoever. I mean, you had heard of it, right? But you really didn't know what you were getting yourself into.
I hadn't really heard very much about it, actually. My partner was very keen on Strictly and Big Brother when they came out, and I rather poo-pooed them. Though we did watch Graham Norton doing a thing called trying to find a star for Oliver Twist. So
Oliver, I watched those.
Which was great.
There were two series. There was Oliver.
There was Maria and Oliver, and I think there's one other. Right. But because Graham Norton was just superb. But there is a musical I'd love to see, which is called Twang. There's one little song on the internet, but it was a musical which only lasted a few performances. It was the follow-up to Oliver by Lionel Bart. It destroyed him. And
I had no idea. There's a sequel to Oliver.
No, it's not a sequel. It's a musical about Robin Hood.
Oh,
and twang is pronounced twang as opposed to twang. It's twang with an exclamation mark. Yeah. Anyway, so so are you still policing in Boston?
I am, sir. Yes, I am.
Yes. When Tim comes, I was going to say go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm down in Cape Cod right now, but I have a day off. But I am. I'll be back to work tomorrow night.
Cape Cod, isn't that the place where the rockets go off?
No, that's Cape Canaveral.
Canaveral.
That's further down, isn't it?
This is where the Pilgrims showed up first, and then.
Right, there we are. Oh, look, I've got a Pilgrim father.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, I really do, because my family had relatives I was brought up in a little town called Spalding, and the family had relatives in a place called Boston. Which strangely the name was grabbed by people on the other side of the world, and you pronounce it with a wonderful diphthong.
Yeah. Well, here's the interesting thing: is when I was in London, in England, I should say, and I'm driving around seeing all these signs for these towns that are located. In New England, places I know. I'm like, you see where they all. It's probably all these people from these small towns that just renamed their towns.
Absolutely,
right, exactly.
A lot of the Pilgrim Fathers came from Boston and that sort of area in Lincolnshire. And why would they not name their big site after the place where that was part of family history?
Exactly.
And I think it's tremendous. But at some point, somebody sent back to the family back in Lincolnshire, they sent back this little effigy, and it's been in my family for many years, and it's found its way into my house, and it's a little man. I think he should really be one of a pair of two of a husband and wife standing on either side of the fireplace, probably on a great mantle. But he's actually carved on the back as well as on the front, so he's not he's not a sort of complete throwaway.
You
But we
have
don't know very much about him.
you have something on your mantle from the 1600s?
No, I don't think it's quite the 1600. I think it's a little later. Look, here he is.
That is so cool.
There we are. But he's my mother used to call him George.
Look at
and
how
he used to
prim
hold
and
it on the
proper
front door. But yeah, it's lovely. So when I look at him, I always think, ooh, yeah, there we are. There's my link with our friends across the Atlantic. Who and anyway, you have a much better pronunciation of English. You pronounce English pretty well as Shakespeare would have done it, I believe. So I need to come over and start learning.
When I was over in London, there was a few guys I was talking with at the bar, and they had a Cockney accent. And I literally could hear, which is interesting to me because a lot of, obviously,
you could hear the American, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could hear a little bit of American in the Cockney accent, at least the Boston accent, It's great.
It's all there, and it's I find that sort of assembly of accents when you're trying to sort of create an accent is so fascinating, and I tend to do it on people that I know, and you just sort of tweak it a little bit, but it's always there. You want to find somebody who's got an extreme version.
Yeah, Tim, can you do an American accent?
No, my American accent sounds as if I'm sort of Baptist preacher. It starts with the R, which of course I've got to try and get an R. But and I can't really do it in front of people who are the real thing. No, I can't. Give me a bit of warning next time, and
I'm sorry.
I'm trying to perfect it, and I've always thought that Boston was really difficult. So, Bret, I'm going to come calling, and I'm going to say, teach me.
Definitely.
You could arrest me first, so that we've got plenty of time together. And
I think that's why a lot of people enjoy Larry and my podcast is because it's pretty thick Boston accents talking back and forth to each other. We're both gay cops, with people seem to think that's a riot too. So, but I will say I did really enjoy your country, and I cannot wait to go back. So I'll have to get back up there.
Well, you've got a permanent invitation from me.
Great.
Awesome. There's a room waiting for you. But I have a feeling that you're incredibly tall.
No, I'm 6'1", so I'm not.
Yeah,
that
you're
tall.
incredibly tall. You see, I'm like the Ronnie Corbett of reality TV. I'm barely 5 foot, and
are you really?
No, I'm about 5 foot. Well, I always thought I was almost 6 foot, but I keep being told that I'm about 5'8", which is quite. I
was going to say you're not that. I was going to say you're not that short.
Well, you should talk to some of my friends. Very, very, very clear. I feel this big sometimes. Some people will be grateful with that. Sorry.
Tim, how have you found post reality TV? Like what?
Ghastly. 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 No, don't open that can of worms. I just think the whole industry is in need of serious reform and serious protection. And every so often somebody kills themselves, and there's another crisis, and people start talking about mental health, but and psychiatry. But I can't think of very many jobs other than the army, maybe the police force occasionally, but other than the army, you don't automatically say, oh, if you're going to do this job, we'll arrange for you to have psychiatric help.
Mm-hmm.
Either that means that when you chose the person in the first place, you weren't very good at choosing them,
right?
And you've chosen somebody who's not very stable,
mm-hmm.
or the process of doing the show is so traumatic that you've damaged them for a serious period of time.
Yeah, and Bret, Tim doesn't even really know this, but Bret was very friendly with somebody on his season who ended up being outed essentially on TV.
Bret,
it wasn't great.
What's that?
You were on one of the seasons of Survivor.
I was.
Yes, he was.
Oh my God, I didn't fully realize this. I thought you were on the other side. You're
Tim,
one of us.
Listen to the introduction, Tim.
I did listen to the introduction.
He doesn't listen to anything I say.
Much.
That he was on Survivor, an Amazing Race, and all kinds of other things.
Oh my goodness!
Now
I understand. Now I
What's going on in that English townhouse, or what do you guys call it over there across the pond?
Yeah, no, he was on twice. I'm saying once, on Survivor, and then he met this guy Chris Hammonds, who was also on his season, and they teamed up to do another show called The Amazing Race.
Now that's a big man, Tim. He's about 6'5", 300-something pounds. He used to play football for OU football. So, he's a big mass of a man. So
what? So can I throw the question back to you, as you've done it twice now?
Well, yes. Oh, so what do I think of it?
Yeah, what do you think?
So I agree with you in some respects. I think I believe that they actually they cast people that are not
that have got a story.
I
which
think,
can also mean that they are vulnerable.
I think they also cast people that maybe shouldn't be cast, that maybe aren't mentally ready for it. I mean, I've talked to, not from my season, but I've talked to people from other seasons that referred to having PTSD, and I'm like, no, I'm sorry, you're not having PTSD from Survivor. You're just not. I understand you might have gone through traumatic things because you couldn't find food, blah blah blah. But there is nobody that's having PTSD from being on Survivor. It's ridiculous. So I think there might be people that probably shouldn't do it. I feel a lot of the older people that go on the show can cope a little more with it and have easier returns to their lifestyles than some of the young people.
It's that sentence. Oh my God, something. It's that sentence about the easier returns to your lifestyles. If you're, it's the post-show bit which worries me more than anything else, because you are prey to a sort of manipulation which simply you don't expect.
I agree with you 100%, and I get sucked into it, much like a lot of people do, and it really freaked me out. And I said, but I think I was able to go, wait a minute, stop. I put like things on my social media so I couldn't see hate.
Had you seen reality TV before you did it?
So I was a Survivor fan. I hated it. So when it first came out in the first season with Richard Hatch, he's a great guy. He lives.
No, I've met him now. I've spoken to him. I think he's wonderful.
Yeah, I really like Richard. He lives.
His story is horrifying.
It really is, yeah. And it's interesting because even today people have their own opinion of what happened, what didn't happen. But I mean, I've talked with Richard and I find him to be a great guy. So
wonderful man.
Yeah, really, really good guy.
And wonderful television as well. I think he just he's so charismatic on the camera.
Oh yeah, he's great. He was great. So I never watched the first season. I remember guys at work, which I was a police officer at the time when it started. Guys at work, I was on the midnight shift. The guys at work were talking about how great it was. Have you seen this show? And I was like, I'm not watching that show. That's reality TV's going to ruin America. So I wouldn't watch it, And then I was up skiing the second season, which is what we're watching now. Australia, you're watching now, Australian Outback. So I was up skiing, and Survivor was smart. CBS was running the Super Bowl, I think, that year, and after so they premiered Survivor the second season beginning after the Super Bowl, which was ingenious because the Super Bowl gets so much ratings. So
they've already got an audience.
Exactly.
So my family was like, hey, we're going to watch this show. And I was like, that's a stupid show. I'm not watching this show. And they're like, oh, no, it's really good. So I kind of got forced into watching it because we were watching the Super Bowl. And then my family was all excited to watch it after. So I watched the first episode of Australian Outback and I fell in love with it. I was like, oh, my God, this game I could do and I could win it. And I knew right then and there. And then they had an open audition at the Prudential Mall in Boston on off Boylston Street. And so I went to it with a couple guys from work. It was probably about 3 or 4 weeks later. I happened to see in the papers, open audition. We waited in line for hours. Now, we were auditioning for the third season of Survivor.
Yeah.
And actually, they did grab a guy, Ethan, from there, who actually just played again in the last season. He's played a couple times. But they grabbed him, I believe, from that open audition in Boston that I went to.
Makes sense.
Never knew him or didn't meet him or anything. But so I auditioned with 3 guys from work. We went across the street to a bar called Whiskey's, and my buddy was the bar manager there, so we drank for free afterwards. It was great. And then I never got called. So, but I would just, whenever they had an open audition, I would go and try out. And about 7 or 8, for many seasons. Guys, I was riding with guys from work, and a guy, my partner at work, who I rode with, and he was like, "What are you doing tomorrow?" I was like, "Oh, there's an open audition, and wherever." So he started making fun of me. It got out at work. All the guys started saying, "Now this is later." So this is like, and so they're like, "I can't believe you're still trying out for that show." So they were all making fun of me and everything. So one of the guys was making fun of me. Saw that there was an open audition. And sent me a thing to it, I'm kind of joking. I was like, well, screw that. It was right down the street from my house. I was like, well, I'm going to that. So I went, and literally 3 weeks later, they called me for it. So here I was. You would be the 33rd season. So I've been trying.
But you'd be a casting director's dream. I mean, you've got a backstory. You're interesting, and again, you're charismatic on camera. I can see it. It's obvious.
Yeah, it's surprising to me that it took that long, but it is amazing. And a lot of people do. They keep coming back, and they finally make it on the show. It does happen. I mean, there was Dan Foley, the guy we'll meet later, who went on. I mean, he would not just audition for every season. He would audition multiple times. He would go on a road trip. And, go audition in Boston, audition in New York, whatever, and he did that for 15 years until they cast him. So there are people like that, but I am surprised it took so long with you.
Yeah.
I would just like to make sure that there's support for people who are doing this, because, in any other form of entertainment, you wouldn't be on the television on a primetime viewing slot if you didn't have, professional representation as an agent or something, if you didn't have proper union representation. A lot of the people who are on reality TV have no professional support at all, and I don't think I think that's more significant than all the sort of psychological stuff, because I don't think the actual shows themselves cause problems. You've got quite a lot of protection around the show anyway, but certainly they set people up for.
Well, yeah,
of course.
I thank my lucky stars that I didn't get on that first season or it's third season, because I don't think I would have done as well. I was younger, and I think it happened when it should have happened. I think going on season 33 as opposed to season 3, I think I was more, it was much easier for me to handle the after effect, just because I was older. I had my friends that have been my friends for many, many years. I had family that was, I was just in a better place, I feel, than some people.
You have to have a really good and supportive base to return to after the show. If there's any wobbles there, it's a nightmare. I mean,
I think that's really delicious.
I can say with my hand on my heart, I would never do it. If I'd known in advance what this sort of show was like, or if I'd done my research properly and looked at the huge number of suicides and catastrophes, I wouldn't have done it.
Well, I mean, I don't understand. It still fascinates me that there's kids that want to go on and put themselves out there, and I think the problem with a lot of the younger generations is that. They think that this is their ticket, and so but
Brett, I think it could be. It could be. And if they are capable, if somebody thinks that they're worthy of putting on primetime TV in a reality show, then they are worthy, and then they deserve an agent, they deserve union representation, they deserve medical insurance, they deserve the lot, and that's the least we can expect from these producers, to support people who they're putting out there to make a huge hulk of money.
Absolutely.
For them. Yeah. And and I would say, the idea of getting a production company to produce psychiatrists is that way is madness. These are not the professionals. The production companies are not professional healthcare. You delegate that to it can come through the agencies, it can come through the unions. It doesn't matter where.
They do on Survivor. They do always have a psychologist on set, right, Brad? Or
that psychologist on set is partly to aid the production, and great.
Yeah,
you also need to have access to something that is independent, and you need to have access to to people who will take your career and independently give you the right advice, rather than otherwise you just feel you're being exploited. And I understand this utterly.
Yeah, we had Dr. Tara, and she was great. And she but the problem with Dr. Tara for us was that all of her time was spent with Chris Hammonds, because Chris he would just kept saying, "I need to see Dr. Tara. I need to see Dr. Tara," and he'd be lying on the couch the whole time while we're trying to, we're all trying to get, we're at Ponderosa trying to get some sort of mental help, but Chris Hammonds took up the psychiatrist's entire time. So
you're just busting on
Karen,
Chris,
are we boring you? I see you knitting over there in the corner.
No, I always knit. This is what I do to kind of keep my hands busy.
Because me and Tim can go on our own here. If you need make that sweater.
Yeah. So this is Tim. Tim, this is the very beginning of your scarf.
The return of Doctor Who. When I was at university, I had a Doctor Who scarf, which I wore on a bike. How it didn't get tangled up in the chain, and how I didn't end up in a sort of Isadora Duncan moment, God knows.
Well,
but I not only had a Doctor Who scarf, which went on forever, but I also had a big voluminous Italian cloak, which I also
hide in the phone booth. Where you hiding the phone booth?
What? No, I didn't go into any phone. No, in my day, phone booths were full of prostitutes and telephone.
But doesn't Doctor Who travel in a phone booth? Wasn't that what he used to do?
Yeah, he did. He traveled in a police phone booth.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. They don't exist anymore.
Yeah. No, I'm just trying to sit here being quiet because you
It's
guys,
awful.
like you said, you can. But we should probably talk a little bit about the episode, given that we're
coming up.
37 minutes in.
I did find this episode rather. I had to turn away once or twice. In fact, I had to remove my spectacles at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I'm there with, I can't remember what her name is, but the person who doesn't eat meat. And I was brought up partly on a farm. I mean, I'm not squeamish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I ever wrung a chicken's neck. I don't remember really, but I was a good chicken plucker. I have to say that very carefully. Mm-hmm. But I was a good chicken plucker.
Right. So let me just set this up a little bit. So when we're coming in from last week, right, they voted out Mad Dog, right, and Tina didn't even flinch. And I think I mentioned this last week, but Mario Lopez, who has been a guest on the show, in his book, says that he sees these two episodes together as kind of an arc, and he thinks it's one of the best story arcs.
Mario Lopez has been on your show.
Yeah, not Mario Lopez, the baseball player or the opera singer, any of those. There's another Mario Lanza. Sorry, I misspoke. Okay. But still, Mario Lanza is also an opera singer, but not that.
I thought it was Mario Lanza, the singer, and I was all ready to start doing the Arrivederci Roma.
I thought it was the guy from Saved by the Bell.
Oh, okay. That would be a great guess. No, but Mario has written, books about Survivor. He's covered Survivor. And so he really said that these are pivotal episodes. And I agree with him. And he's also something that might be surprised you a little bit that, we're seeing a new villain, right, in this arc. But I would say it's not Jerry, right?
No.
Who do you think our villain is?
Well, you've told me who the villain is, and Bret must know.
Yeah. I mean, I still say Jerry's sort of a villain in this because
Jerry is painted as the villain. It's so clear, and she gets so much villain time.
Yeah, right.
It gets worse / better. Let me guarantee you.
Once you've got a good villain, the last thing a television production company wants to do is let them go. So I can't imagine she's likely to be voted off very soon. But the vitriol is astonishing, and the program started with Jerry. It was sort of bookmarked by her, by her really.
So we have this thing where Keith and Tina wake up, they want to go fishing, right? They get the canoe out, and then Jerry wakes up and immediately grabs the canoe, and goes out. And this is just such a clear setup that we're seeing. So then Keith and Tina just walk along the banks and they talk. And we saw last time in Tribal Council, right? Jerry told us that her friends are Amber, Mitchell, and I'm sorry, this is one of those days where my brain is not communicating with my mouth. The rest of the tribe. Who am I forgetting? Colby, right.
Colby, yeah.
That those are her friends. What she didn't say, but it was clear, meaning that I'm not friends with Tina and Keith, the two older people. And we've talked about this, that generally anybody who's different from the group is more likely to be targeted early. It can be the Black person, it can be the gay person, it can be the older person.
Yeah, I think this is interesting because it's really the first time we start to see that Survivor starts to alienate the older. There's always like, even when I was going on, you're nervous because you might be older than everyone else. And I wasn't worried because I know I'm good with a lot of people, like talking. I can win people over, but like I can understand, like, say Paul from my season going in. I have to be very careful here because they tend to try and vote out the older person. And I think this is, like, I would say the beginning of that whole thought process, because you see it here on the beach in
but you saw it in the previous series as well.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
The old people were voted out almost from the first episode.
Yeah,
right.
And
that's true, actually, you're right. I'm forgetting I haven't seen Borneo in so long.
Yeah, Rudy, was able to make it, but everybody else who was older in the cast, they were the first ones off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the only reason Rudy wasn't was that Richard had already picked him up and realized that he wanted to keep him around. But we get to
that was Rudy.
But in terms of Jerry,
nice. Just nice. And in contrast, the friendship between Jerry and Colby is faintly distasteful and filmed in a rather sort of salacious way, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
I just think if they want to do Love Island, wait a few years, do Love Island. There's a new one coming out, which is going to involve people posing for portraits.
Oh, really? I haven't heard about this one.
It's a slightly more modest version, I believe, of Naked Attraction. If you want all of that, that's available.
Mm-hmm.
But I just find it when the genres start mixing, you think, why are you being so desperate?
Well, it is clear with Colby. I feel like with Colby and Jerry, there is clearly some attraction, and also, but we'll get to them more. But
so if we were producing these episodes, I think we would all agree that the interesting thing about Colby and Jerry is the fact that they're playing each other at the same time as playing with each other. And the fact
that they're both doing it, because we do see this a lot where they call these showmances, right? When you meet somebody on a show, and often what happens is one person, often the female, right, is kind of all in, and the man, I mean, maybe he likes her, but he's also just kind of using her for game purposes. What is interesting about this, is that they were both playing each other. I think the attraction is real. What do you think, Brett? I mean, I think the attraction is real, and I feel like they're both playing each other.
No, I think the attraction is real, but I think it's evident in this episode is that Colby's starting to realize he's trying to figure out where he's best aligned with. So he doesn't want to get too close to her, but he is attracted to her. I actually do enjoy showmances. I enjoy, things like that. It's because it's like it's stupid, and then they, especially now in later seasons, they're trying to hide it. Like on my season, Figgy and Taylor, they're trying to hide their attraction because they don't want people to think that they're voting. Because once people are together in that respect, they're voting the same way.
Yes, but why not? Why not?
Generally, any pair that always votes together is dangerous.
Exactly. So for me, I'm looking at it going, well, I need to get rid of one of them, because I don't want them having two votes. So it definitely puts a target on your back. I do enjoy it, though. I get it. I know why people I know why the producers put it in, but you don't want too much of it, though. I agree. Like if you want to watch Love Island, go watch Love Island. If you want to watch,
what I would love to see is far more of the sort of irony. Here's our makeup scene, followed immediately by a cussing scene, and cross cut between the two. I would love to see that far more because by the time I get the confessional bit, I've sort of forgotten about the bit in the water.
Yeah.
And I thought the bit in the water was a bit sort of set up anyway.
Yeah.
I would just like to see that cross-cutting. I think cross-cutting is a wonderful way to show.
And they do look. The editing is much better on this season than it was on Borneo, but they're still learning.
That's what's so fun to watch it. It's like even Jeff is like when they're doing the and we'll get to it. I don't want to go like he's even standing awkward in so many different scenes. It's like,
isn't he just? And one scene today, he looked as if he'd wet himself. He was standing so uncomfortably.
I know it was so bizarre.
And I think part of the thing is, does he have vertigo? I mean, there was one scene that second game in today's episode. It was on such a sort of vertiginous cliff.
It's not a challenge, Tim. It's a challenge.
I think for him as well. But
we'll get there. Okay, it's time for me to get the gavel out. I forgot to get the gavel again. Let's try to do this kind of in order so that we kind of hit all the points, because we're talking about three things at once. See, this is why, Brett. I'm the bad cop. That's my job here.
No, you just made yourself the judge. You're not a bad cop. You just made
That's right, because I got the gavel. You're right.
Yep. Yep,
so we talked about so there were two conversations with Keith and Water and everything. The first one we already talked about. He's with Tina. Clearly that they want to get rid of Jerry. And Keith even says, when I came here, my goal was to win the money. He says, at this point, my goal is to make sure that she doesn't win it. Which is pretty strong, especially given they've been together for 9 days.
I mean, but that resonates, man. After being out to this, it's like I don't care what happens. This person's not getting $1 million. I don't care what happens.
And the other thing that's was it? He said it was it was time I shook her world up.
Mm-hmm. Something like that.
You see, he's great in it, and I could feel his pain because I felt that anger before myself. So.
Really?
Yeah. Again, we don't see him do anything so bad, but we are told over and over and over again that nobody can stand her. Right. I mean, clearly Amber works with her.
We don't see why.
Well, I mean, the first thing we saw was when she went through Kel's bag, which I think was completely justified, right? But at the time, a lot of people really disagreed.
I just what I notice about her is she never seems to stop talking. Now, I don't think I want to mention that in a way, but I could imagine her getting on people's nerves a little bit. There was an amazing film from the 1960s called Arrivederci, Darling, or something with
Arrivederci Roma, maybe. It sounds vaguely familiar.
There is the Arrivederci Roma, which is or is that I can't. There's a song anyway, but it's a song on movie,
which means goodbye Rome for our listeners.
Yeah, who's the fellow in Spartacus? Not Spartacus, but the sidekick, who's the poet. Curtis, Tony Curtis. It's a film with Tony Curtis, and at one point he marries Jar Jar Gabor. And when he proposes to her, she's got she's got laryngitis, and when the day she marries him, the laryngitis goes, and she talks non-stop. And he realizes he has to kill her. So he sticks her in a rocket and she goes off to the moon. And it's very funny. And she's still talking. She's hilarious. But I feel that Jerry is a little bit of a Jar Jar Gabor in that film. And she's I think she's relentless. And she doesn't seem to have anything nice to say.
Yeah.
That I think is the big problem. She had nice things to say. Everybody would be.
And again, we never know. It's possible that she was saying nice things, but those didn't make the edit because that wasn't the character they wanted to portray. That's also possible.
Yeah. I mean, so I can remember watching this the first time, and I was not a fan of Jerry. And of course, now I watch it back and I think, they're filming you, Tim, as you know, 24/7. So if they want to make you into whatever they want to make you, and they will. So I give her a little more, some more rope this time. Rewatching the season, which I'm very excited to do, since I've never seen this since it aired, season 2, and it's exciting for me to watch it now again because for this podcast, but also because it's just so cool to think that that's what it's so different from how it is today. And yet,
and for Borneo, it's been really interesting for me that there were all these things like that I remembered that didn't really quite happen that way.
Mm-hmm.
So it has been really fun to go back, and rewatch. I'm sure some of our listeners are probably new to Survivor, but I think a lot of us are probably, it's the same thing as just the process of doing a rewatch after a number of years. Right. Like I said, like, I remember vividly, Richard Hatch looking into the camera and saying, what's funnier than a fat, naked gay man, a fat, naked gay guy, a fat, naked gay guy with $1 million, except it never happened. Right. Yeah. Jervis tells us that Jervis or Sean tells us that he said that. So again, just like the whole process of memory is funny sometimes.
Yeah. And I've met a lot of some of these people on this season now. So it's really cool to rewatch.
Have you met Jerry?
I have not met Jerry. I would love to meet Jerry, but I have not.
I think out of all the, I've got my little list of people I would like to meet, because I would like to see how they compare with the character that they've got on the show, because I agree with you. The character on the show is sometimes at some remove from the character you would meet. I mean, I think in some sort of there is an essence of the character that you see on television in the person, but it may not be the bit that plays best. But I think today we've got Jerry, we've got Michael. Mm-hmm. These two are so much vitriol is thrown at these two, and then there's somebody else. I can't who else is it Tina, the Tina Colby Mitch conversation. There's a comment which simply would never air today immediately after that conversation, which actually shocked me. And you suddenly realized there's just so much pent-up aggression here.
Mm-hmm. And which comment specifically are you talking about? Later in the episode or no? What? Sorry?
Estrogen overload. It was slightly muted as in the soundtrack, at least in the version that I heard. But
yes, I did catch that, and I did. It's funny how we're programmed to think now, because I literally was like, "Wow, that's interesting." What he just
isn't it?
It wouldn't be said today. It would be. It would be stricken from the record.
Right. You probably wouldn't say it, and if you did, they certainly wouldn't have aired, unless they want to make you look bad, in which case then you would see it. Right. But it is interesting in terms of what's considered to be acceptable, or even, like I said, 20 years ago, I don't think anybody even blinked at that comment, and now we notice it.
I think qualified. They would be all over them on Twitter and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. So we get to the reward challenge. What they do is they give each tribe an egg, and they tell them that they have to build a chicken coop. Okay, they're kind of prepared. So
that chicken coop being built. We see them collecting bits and pieces. I don't remember seeing the chicken coop.
We didn't see the finished chicken coop until
they left them in the boxes. Ty would lose his mind if he saw how those chickens were living.
Right.
They hung them from the trees and sat them in the boxes.
I didn't research this, but I should have. I wonder if this is the first time that PETA, started, picketing Survivor, because they've certainly done it a bunch of times.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So and then the
free-range chickens. I'll say at the end of the.
Yeah, but I think we talked. Tim, I think we've already talked about Ty. So Ty is a character from again a much later season who really befriends the chicken, names the chicken after his boyfriend.
All these chickens had names.
Right. Well, that's right. So they get
their necks. So what were they trying to do? They were trying to. I mean, that's pretty intimidating, isn't it? No chicken comes out of the egg with a name.
Well, and especially they didn't name the rooster. We get Henrietta, Ruby, and Roxy. Does the rooster have a name? If you want to talk about, gender discrimination.
His name was Dinah.
So the challenge itself is a slide puzzle, and it is like a 3x3 slide puzzle.
And that was great because it looked like something I painted the morning of the.
Yes. Exactly.
How did they know that they weren't allowed to lift these squares off the board?
Because the way that the puzzle, so you've never done a slide puzzle, because they are very, very common on Survivor. You physically can't move them.
Oh, you
or
can't.
maybe so I used to play with them as a kid. I used to play with a little plastic one.
Yeah,
And they are
like what is it? Like that square that you cube
like
Rubik's
like Rubik's
a little
Cube.
different.
A little
Similar,
different.
a little different. It's more of a you move it across,
Yeah.
And the thing is, they're very easy to do if you know how to do a slide puzzle. And if you've never done a slide puzzle, you may never figure it out. And so, these people, obviously, this was the first side puzzle. But
wasn't Tina the one barking all the orders?
She was doing some barking, sure.
I've actually met Tina.
Yeah. So what is Tina like? What is Tina like?
Oh my God! So I absolutely love Tina. So, and I think I'm obviously going to be Tim, you're watching this, so but she you'll grow. She's just somebody that's comes off as very sweet on this.
Yeah. And
so I always really liked her when I was watching it the first time. So I hadn't, thought about her in years. And I was doing a down Hot Reality down in Florida, and I was shocked because a lot of times at these Survivor things, you won't see a lot of the older crew.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a really nice thing for kids. Give Kids the World to raise money for Give Kids the World, and it's got a big following with Survivor.
Oh, it's so much fun. Yeah, I've been there a few times, and yeah, when Tim does come across the pond, when we can, yes, we are absolutely going to have to schedule it.
Oh, you should definitely. I'm telling you, you'll be swarmed because people watch the circle, they'll know who you are. So I walk. So I'm walking with Sunday, who's on my season, a woman named Sunday, who I love, and we're at some event, and I turn and I see it's Tina Wesson, and I go, and this is my first one. So my season just aired, and I says, "Oh my God, it's Tina Wesson." And she looks at me, she goes, "Oh my God, Bret Labelle, I can't wait to meet you. Come over and give me a hug." And I go, "Oh my God, Tina Wesson knows my name." Like I was so freaked out by it. Like I was so excited because it's Tina Wesson, like she was on the second season of Survivor, which I fell in love with. So it was really cool. She is the sweetest, kindest person.
It's just so.
But she will also cut a bitch. We saw that last week with Mad Dog, and that's what I love.
Yeah, if you're on Survivor with you, don't
don't turn your back on her.
Don't sleep. But I'll tell you, I've met her several times after that at these Hot Reality. She goes every year, and I love her. She's the sweetest woman in the world. So,
but I just find it so fascinating that if if she'd had a more if an editor had wanted to take a different view, they could easily have made Tina the villain rather than Jerry. But they decided they were going to do this to Jerry, and I think it's a toss of the dice.
Yeah. Well, here's the interesting thing, and I think that they hide it better now, but they don't hide it then. I'm sure that when they're editing this season, I think there's more. I don't want to give anything away, but there's probably more coming that would make her, So like they're much better now at not showing things until things happen. So they're probably. I feel.
Brett, so much of this stuff is a little bit like a magician offering you a card to choose.
Yes,
not choosing a card.
Right.
That card is already presented for you. You might have the illusion of choice, but there is no choice.
Exactly. And Jerry was not as I can remember back then. She was not happy with how they were portraying her, and I totally get it. I get it even better now.
Me too.
Than I did.
Me too. I was incredibly lucky on my show.
They loved Tim. They did not, the worst thing, quote unquote, they did to you was like, you ran on a treadmill in a 3-piece suit, right? That kind of thing. So, but nothing bad. What?
I knew what they were doing, and I just gave them whatever they wanted. I thought, play along with this, and it's and I'm safe.
Right. I think that's what comes from being older and being on these shows is not only will you will give them what they want, but you also know what not to give them.
Yeah. If you give them a vacuum, if you don't say anything, then they will throw any form of character at you to make you worthwhile.
Right.
I was amazed the little bit I've actually seen. I've not seen very much of it, but the little bit I've seen, I think actually that is me. It's just a slightly bigger version of me.
Exactly. And that's what you want. I mean, people are like, I don't think I've ever met somebody who's been on a show and just walked away and said, wow, that person is nothing like what I saw on the show. Even the people, you meet somebody who was portrayed badly on the show, when you meet them, when they're really nice, that happens. But in terms of I've just never had a situation where the person in front of me isn't at least, 75% of what I expect.
Yeah, I think what's frustrating with Survivor for someone who's played and watched it back is if something, let's say something happens, someone's voted out. There's 4 people taking credit for that, for that vote out. There's 4 people that think, hey, and I think honestly in their minds they think they did it by having a certain conversation. There's people that we swung to vote a certain way, and they still talk to the camera like they're the ones who did it.
Right. Because, if you do it really well, that's the point. You plant the idea so well that they think it's their idea.
Right,
that's being a great Survivor player.
But then when production cuts it that way, and you're like, that person didn't have anything to do with that.
Right.
Yet now it's solidified as fact, and that's what happened on the show, and that's what happened to all the fans, and that's what's frustrating as hell, when someone takes credit for something that they didn't do.
Well, we all know that it's an edited show, et cetera, et cetera. So we got the slide puzzle. Kucha wins again.
Yeah.
And then we see Scoopin'. And again, remember last week, he really, really wanted to get a pig, right? He really wants to provide food. He's been fishing. He watched Hatch, and he figured, this is how I make myself valuable to the tribe. I want to provide food. So, but you would think that Scoopin' would be, happy, and he would kind of lay back and figure that they've got plenty of food now. And that's not what happens. He says that, they could eat the chickens, every other day kind of, and that would get them up to the merger, which they're still calling it that. But he doesn't, but he still wants them to value his contribution. So he's also sure this is such a good thing. So everybody wakes up the next day, and he is already, holding the knife. He's ready to kill the rooster. Right. And Nick, stops him again. And this is not the first time, or I don't even the second time, that somebody had to sit Scoopin' down and say, this has to be a group decision. Again, Brett, I'm sure you can talk to this, but you don't mess with people's food on Survivor. No,
you don't. And you want to make sure it's well, first of all, you have Kimmy running around. She doesn't want any part of killing anything. So that you have to I understand Scoopin' wants to kill the rooster, and I think the rooster's days were numbered. But you really have to be careful just jumping into that and saying we're going to do it no matter what, because it puts a target on your back. Now, I'm the kind of man. I'm an animal lover. I've had pets my whole life. Not now. Right now, I just can't do it. But I found myself like I would never want. I watched these shows over the years, saying, "Geez, I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I could kill it." And then you're out there starving. And we had goats up in the mountains that we could hear, and I was ready to kill one of these goats so we could eat. I was starving, and I'll tell you, because it just your survival takes over, and you're like, yeah, it'd be horrible to do it. I'd feel awful, but I got to eat. And I think there was 3 or 4 of us that were ready to do that if we could catch one. We couldn't catch one, but the point was, it's like I think that on the 9th day, I'm not sure you're there. By the 25th day, you're there. People are gonna, whatever they find, they're gonna eat. Right. They're gonna kill.
Right. And I don't even think the issue was. I mean, Kimmy didn't want to kill the chickens. Everybody else did, but it's not in terms of him waking up in the morning and decide we're gonna have chicken for breakfast. And this just kind of keeps happening with this stuff.
I think he's putting a target on his back. I think that's a stupid move.
Exactly. Yeah. And people have told him this, and he keeps doing it.
Oh, he's adamant about it. He looks psychotic in one of the scenes.
It gets even better.
And the stuff with the blood.
Yeah, again, we're going to get that to there in just a second.
Breathing through your teeth.
Yeah, so we have the scene where Tina's talking smack again about Jerry, and Keith and Mitchell agree, and Tina says, I have nothing to lose, right? Because she saw what happened to Mad Dog, right? She's smart enough to know she is an older woman. So she's like, I need to do something. I need to take Jerry out. And again, this is our little sweet 95-pound, barely saw her in the premiere, nurse and she's like, I need to take that woman out. So put a pin in that. And then also there's a forest fire near Ogakor. They said they can hear the trees falling and burning, right? So it's pretty close. But they said the flames have to cross the river to get to camp, but that wouldn't really make me so comfortable. So Anyway, it doesn't sound great.
It makes for interesting editing.
Of course. And then we have another conversation between Colby and Keith, and this is the one I think we were referring to last time, where Keith says to Colby, and this is not word for word, but it's pretty close, the Jerry is not good enough. I'll cut your throat if I hear that you two hooked up. You know. And I don't think, and Keith wasn't wrong to say that. I mean, it's a dangerous thing to say.
Can I ask a dunce question for a second?
Yes.
Is Keith the chef?
Yes, Keith is the chef who can't cook rice.
I've written around Keith. I've written wants to take out Keith. I've circled Keith, and I've written above him chef ? And below, who is he? I mean, it just seems to me he turns up every so often, but he's so bland and dull. Out of the various people in the show, he is somebody who I don't have any great desire to meet. And
it's funny that you said that, because when they cast him, he was a big coup, because he was kind of like a celebrity chef. It wasn't just that, I cook for a living.
I thought for a second you were going to say, but Tim is coming on next week.
No. Although I might as well say this now, just to kind of, our guest next week, I'll say it again at the end, but our guest next week will be the person voted out next week.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that'll be fun. That'll be, well, right. So when you watch the episode, that is going to be.
So you can't announce who it is at the end of the
that's Tim. That's really cool, because you'll get some really inside information. Like if we were watching, and I hope someday you watch my episode. And
I will. Brett, I will forget what you say in 2 minutes. I promise. But did you win?
Did I win?
Yes,
I did not win.
He did not.
Why not? You've got winner written all over.
Exactly. Why didn't I win? I had the jury locked up. I don't know what happened. So.
Oh my goodness! So you came second.
He's just busting on you. He didn't make the finals.
I made the final episode. I made 37 out of 39 days.
Yeah, but he was not in the final tribal council. He did well, but he did not win.
I did not win.
And yet, by the time it'll be at the rate we're going, it'll take about 8 years
myself
to get
coming
to
in
season.
third.
I
consider myself coming in third, because there was two people that couldn't win in my set at the end. So there was only 3 people from the final 5 that could win.
Right.
Interesting.
Right.
And like I said, at the rate we're going, we'll get to your season in about 7.5 years. So by then, let's assume that.
We may be out of lockdown by then. But if we're not,
God willing,
if we're not, I will get my little rowing boat out and I will row across the Atlantic one summer, and that would be my own personal lockdown.
Yeah.
I can be met in Boston. I can be a new
We'll meet you on Plymouth Rock, right? With a big flag.
I'll be a sort of Pilgrim Father Christmas, actually.
It's a pebble, though. It's not that big. I call it Plymouth Pebble. It's like it's the size of it. I can't believe there's no way that's the real rock. I'm telling you right now.
I haven't seen it. It's really small.
It's like I can hold it in my hands.
So then that's probably mythology. That's probably not
know.
the Rock. But I had the same reaction also to the Liberty Bell.
What?
I thought the Liberty Bell was going to be so much bigger.
I know.
Yeah.
I've seen that too.
Yeah.
That's the thing in Washington, isn't it?
Philadelphia.
Philly, yeah.
Oh, did I see it? I can't remember. I think I did see it. I went down from New York to Washington. That's
Philly's in between.
Sure.
Yeah. But there's bells everywhere. There's one in the Kremlin. They're so keen to show you, and I got a private tour of the Kremlin, which I must say I wouldn't recommend, because you get sort of bullied from one place to the other. And I found myself in this wonderful church covered in icons, and someone said, and here is a picture of here's an icon of Saint Peter, and I said,
in the Kremlin, don't they not believe in God? I'm very confused.
No, but the Kremlin's very, very old, and it's got about 5 churches in it. And
interesting.
And they're beautiful things. And so I said, no, that's not an icon of St. Peter, St. Paul. And said, St. Peter, and it's come this way to see the bell. And I thought, it's going to be more boring than seeing a bell. And I thought, well, it's bigger. It's bigger than the Liberty Bell.
Right.
You know, it's a Russian.
Okay.
But there we are. Yeah, I was very disappointed.
Yeah, Philly's a good town, though. I like Philly.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna be there on Friday. I hope I'm gonna make a stop.
The change in pronunciation as you go down.
Yeah.
I just sort of and. The problem is being British. The accent, the emphasis goes back onto me, and people say, "Oh, go on, speak English," and I speak British English, and I think, no, I just want you to talk to me. These wonderful people are selling me bagels in New York, and
oh yeah, so it's funny because when I go over to England and Scotland, I stayed in a really kind of a tough neighborhood in the Gorbals in Scotland.
Oh my goodness! Yes.
Yeah, and there was these kids that would, kids in the neighborhood. They would come out, knock on the door, because I was with a couple, 3 other buddies from Boston, and they say, "Send those guys out. They sound like good fellas," because they couldn't tell the difference between a New York accent and a Boston accent over there. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. I always thought a Boston accent was much softer than a New York accent, but your accent seems much stronger.
Yeah, I can hear a New York. I can hear the difference immediately, a New York accent, but I can't really decipher the difference, or what, what's.
Maybe I'm thinking of a sort of Princeton accent, and sort of moving off into and stuff.
So back to the episode. So like I said, so we Colby and Team talking. Oh, and then Colby said something. The problem is at some point, I love this stuff. I mean, we could just have a podcast.
I know. We're gonna get back to what.
Yeah, but we pretend that we talk about the episode, and this is such a good episode. There have been a few, and there will be a few more. I hate to say it, also in this season where they're kind of boring, right? But this is not one of them. Okay. So they talk about eating a kucha, the racket kucha, do we kill a chicken? Everybody agrees except Kimmy. So Scoopin does it, right? And it doesn't seem like the chicken suffered, right? Nobody's really upset. That happens later.
Suffered. They cut his head off.
Yeah. Okay, but if you do it properly, they shouldn't feel pain. If you just get a hatchet, my understanding. I've never butchered a chicken.
No, exactly. Chickens, I'm sure chickens feel pain. I'm sure cocks feel pain. I should
yeah, this is America. You want to be careful with that one. Yeah. I'd like to give a shout out to my friend Tom, who's just in London right now.
There we are. Oy vey.
So we say Scoopin again, saying, I need to catch the food, right? Now that they have eggs and chicken.
Movement against that. Yeah. Sorry. Whoa.
Right. I'm sorry. I stepped on a moment there. I'm sorry.
No. There's no moment. I think the moment was gone at birth.
Right. So they all eat the chicken. Kimmy is unhappy.
What I found funny was how many people we have there now? Because they lost
6.
So we have 6.
We lost Kel and Mad Dog. So
they're like, with one chicken, everyone can eat. I'm like, that's still not a lot of meat to split one chicken between 6 people. But
that's presumably why they needed the pig.
Right.
No, and they also, my understanding is they kind of make chicken soup out of it, and they also have the broth. But
you're only splitting it between 5, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. Right, because Kimmy's not eating it. You're right.
Oh yes, that's right. She's
one is going to look on listlessly.
Right.
Wait a minute. Now that's interesting. Do we know that she didn't eat it? She said,
I'm sure she didn't. She wouldn't eat the cow brains in the challenge. She says she doesn't eat mammals. She doesn't eat fowl. She gave us the whole list. So she didn't.
Why do we not know this? That would surely be a much more interesting thing to focus on. So all the rest of the 5 are sort of tucking in, devouring all this meat, and she's tucking into a daisy or something.
She's just elsewhere, right? But she does handle it properly. I feel like it's a whole question about if you're on a show, should you eat it, whatever. But I certainly respect somebody who doesn't. And like you said, more food for everybody else. But now, and she didn't handle so well the last time, but this time we didn't see her blowing up at anybody. She just goes somewhere else, which to me, that's kind of the way you deal with a situation like this, right? Because, what do you think, Brent? You don't want to cause fights.
I think that if you don't eat meat, you're a hypocrite, and you shouldn't be allowed to partake. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't. I think she handled it well. Yeah, if you're not, they're going to do it. You know that they're meat eaters. They're hungry. They're going to do it. So if you're against it, you need to leave because it's going to happen and what. Right. So
I think the walking off was just theatrical. And unnecessary. And she walked off, and so did some of the other girls. A whole girl posse walked off, and I just thought it's just not sort of no.
You could have sat there and covered your ears.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Don't just grit your teeth and get on with it. You know, really. I mean, you may not want to eat the stuff, but it's not going to change whether you see it happening or whether you don't see it happening. Isn't going to change what happens.
Right.
These people are going to eat.
That's
right.
true.
And then we do have another moment again, which I do not think we would get on 2020, where Nick says, "Once you go dark meat, you never go back." And Alicia laughs. I mean, I think it was funny, but you would never see that today.
No, that's the first time. That's the first time he's perked up and that we've seen some sort of character out of him.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes.
Another person you question, why is he cast?
And I want to like Nick because we went to the same law school, right? I really want to root for him. And again, Mario talks about this in the book, that I think Mario's brother was in law school with Nick.
Oh, wow.
So that he was really like rooting for him and hoping to meet him, everything. And then, he was kind of a little bit of a dud on the show.
No,
at least.
Well, I mean, they're getting used to casting people. I'm sure in the casting thing, he was really lively and fun. And then he got out there and he was a dud.
There was a cheeky moment there. Just lovely.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was cute. And
cheeky.
Yes.
Cheeky.
I love it.
You can see what potential he had, can't you? I mean, you can see that, Bret.
Oh yeah, no, I can. There's a couple of scenes coming up, and I'm sure Karen's going to get to them. Well, yeah, I could see a couple. But he, again, and he might have great scenes out there. They just got cut.
Right. Who knows?
I really don't know. I'm just talk to him if he was here.
Well,
he would say, you know what, I did this, did that, and they never showed it. So,
am I allowed to ask you, Bret, what was your favorite cut scene?
My favorite cut scene was
in your episode.
Yeah, so Chris Hammond's. So everyone started talking about their dogs and their pets, and we were all sitting around the campfire. And I got into talking to Ken, which was a long conversation, as it often is when you're talking with Ken. And so I talked to Ken. So I left the conversation over here between Sunday, Chris Hammond, who I was on Amazing Race with, and Jessica, and maybe David. And so I leave that conversation. I have a conversation with Ken, and when I come back, this is a big 6'5", 300-pound man, is in tears, bawling his eyes out. And I go, now what in the hell is wrong with you? I go, what just happened? Like he's bawling his eyes out, like it's like a baby. And he's like, well, they got me talking about my dead dog. And I said, well, I go, knock it off. I go, don't cry on Survivor, you loser. And we literally all just started laughing. Everyone started laughing. It was hysterical. Even the cameramen were laughing. It was a great scene, and it got cut.
I am surprised we didn't see that. Yeah,
it got cut because it was literally everyone was in hysterics, and we had a lot of fun with it. And Chris literally, he'll cry at the drop of a hat. He's unbelievable.
Oh, really? That's good to know. I never knew that about Chris.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very emotional man.
Yeah.
Never seen it.
And of course, you have a long period from when you film it to when it's aired, don't you?
Yeah, but so much gets cut,
What's that like?
It's nerve-wracking, I mean, we're a little luckier because we were the first season to show in September, so they filmed them back to back.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So probably actually, I'm not sure how it went back then, but now we were the first ones to film. And then we air in September. So we only had to wait about 4 or 5 months. Whereas the guys that air in February, they tape right after us, and they have to wait almost 9 months, 7 or 8 months. So.
Right. Yeah. So you didn't have that because your show was, happening as it was being shown, like Big Brother.
That's not true.
But Tim, it was.
Tim, yeah.
Tim, yeah. And even the Netflix Netflix showed the U.S. circle, not in that way, but in the UK. It's happening, and that's why, and they have the live shows every Friday and all of that.
Do you think it's easier if you've got that long period of time to sort of adjust to what's coming?
Oh, yeah. And in terms of the problems that people have had coming out, I feel like people on shows like Big Brother have had a much harder time because with Survivor, even like if you did something out there that is problematic, let's say, I mean, it's coming, but you have kind of 6 months to prepare for it. Whereas when you're on and you see episode to episode, right, how people are reacting to your character. Yeah. Whereas in Big Brother, you have nothing, right? They lock you up for 3 months. You have no idea what America really thinks of you. And then you come out, to confetti. and suddenly you're famous. So I think that's probably much harder on people than something like Survivor. Just guessing, right? I don't have any statistics.
I never got into it. I'm trying to get into Big Brother. I never get into it. I don't know why. Too much to watch or something.
And a lot of people are. Yeah, a lot of people are.
Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah,
I mean, I got 2 left feet, Tim, but I would do it. I mean, I had a friend that did Dancing with the Stars.
Did you?
Who did you know that was on Dancing with the Stars?
Casa Cressley.
Oh, really? You know Carlson? I love Carlson. You know Carlson?
I had Carson on the podcast. The last podcast we did before the summer Carson was on it.
Oh, okay. I missed that one. Yeah, because I knew you took the summer off. No, love Carson. Love Carson.
He's the best.
And he was funny on that show. I mean, he's funny.
Oh, he's great. He's great in everything he's in. He's unbelievable.
Yeah. So we go back. So we're seeing some Ogakor. We have not gotten to the immunity challenge yet, but we are starting to see, the machinations going. Mitchell, all we really get at Mitchell is he's very, very hungry because he's 8 feet tall. I mean, that's what we get out of Mitchell. Then we see all the machinations. Mitchell talks to Jerry. Colby is talking to Keith. And Jerry does admit, she says, I should not have said that last time about, these are my friends. It was a dumb thing to say, but I said it. And then we see that, there is the fire is, kind of driving the animals out of the forest. Mm-hmm. And so again, there's discussion about getting a pig.
Then we see the piggy.
Yes, trying to get a little piggy. And then Jerry and Colby, and then we have this interesting thing with Jerry and Colby. So Jerry says, Colby can separate the game from our flirtation. He says that's a strong person, right? She recognizes that. She doesn't think that she's necessarily got him wrapped around her finger. I just find this whole relationship really, really interesting.
It is.
And then they make a final 3 though with Jerry and Colby and Amber, and he agrees. And then they see Colby, of course, in confessional saying, "I don't trust any of these people, and they shouldn't either."
Yes.
Right?
Well, we do. A lot would depend on the order of the actual filming there.
Right. Of course.
My feeling is that the Colby. The Colby Jerry relationship, there's a lot of rethinking about it in front of a camera as confessional.
It will continue on this season, and I think it's fair to tell you that it will continue in more than one additional season. We will see Colby and Jerry play 3 times together.
Really?
So this is just the very, very beginning of a 10-year arc with these 2.
Yeah. But I really think there's a lot of things, particularly that Jerry says, that smack to me of somebody saying, "Why did you say that?" "Oh, I said that because blah 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 blah, and I shouldn't have said that." Sorry, I'm doing a little bit of a.
It's fine. It's an American accent. It's not. It's Tina's accent, not Jerry's accent. But I'll.
It's. I know. I'm not quite got it. I will try and get it. I will try and. In your honor, Bret, I will work on my. Boston.
There you go.
Well, you already don't have an R, so you should be well on your way. Because we're going to try to do my Boston. Because remember, I spent 8 years living in Cambridge, right? So I can pack your car. So I just basically pretend I can't say R's. Rather, park your cars, pack your car. Just drop the R's like they don't
Cambridge.
Sorry.
Park your car.
Pack
the car.
Yeah, the moment I get rid of my R, I feel I've lost all access to the United States.
What I love is when people come up to me and go, "Oh my God, you have such an accent." I go, "No, I don't have an accent. The country started in Boston. I talk the way you're supposed to talk."
Yep, you really do. You really do. Except I think when we let you go, we did let you go.
Well, technically, I would say England has a gripe too, but when it comes to Americans telling me that I have an accent, I do not have an accent. I
think the R must have come from the Scots who went to America, actually, because they've still.
That could be, yeah. If I could say one thing, go to Edinburgh for ringing in the bells, New Year's. It was the best New Year's of my life. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I was in university up in Scotland for a short period, and it was wonderful. I sort of fell in love both with the but both with the east side and with the west side. I loved Glasgow.
Such a cool town. That city, you know, it's just really cool.
I spent a couple of days there. I think I still have the sweater. You know, of course, I had to buy the required, you know, Irish sweater.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it would still fit, but I still have it.
I remember my first day up in Scotland, and I went to St Andrews University there, and I was quite young, and when we arrived, there was this incredibly strong fog which had come over the town from the sea. And it remained there for about 3 days. And I was thinking, well, how on earth could they build anything? Because I couldn't see much beyond the end of my arm. Right. And I was stumbling around the place and panicking a little bit. And then the fogs lifted, and it was quite sort of miraculous, really. And it's such a pretty little town. And Edinburgh's beautiful.
Yeah.
And Glasgow at the time when I was up there was a little bit rough. So I think we may have been up there in the same sort of time.
Yeah. Glasgow is no longer rough, you're saying?
Yeah,
again, I was there in the 80s, so.
Glasgow has been seriously gentrified.
Oh, has it really? Wow.
Yeah. The roughness has been moved out.
The fact they had a TGI Fridays there. I'm like, what is a TGI Fridays doing in Glasgow Center?
That's ridiculous.
Crazy.
No, it's just beautiful, and they've got such, you know, such strong political leaders there as well. I've met a few, and I've had dealings with a few, and in fact, I did get a very nice offer to go up and meet the First Minister, but I haven't done it yet. Which I just think she's superb. In my mind, she's like Julie Andrews, but I don't suppose that's how she sees herself.
Right.
You know, that's how I see it.
So back to our bloodthirsty.
You see her twirling in a field up on.
I really do. I see her just, you know, coming out of Edinburgh and taking a bit of control. You know.
I love it.
So back to our bloodthirsty pedophile, as I called him on Twitter. Michael Scoopin finally. Yeah, never go full scooping. No. T-shirt available. That's right. I did not plug the T-shirts because you guys just started talking. It's fine. So yes, that T-shirt and many others are available at johnnyfairplay.com.
Is that the one you're wearing at the moment?
No. I am wearing the Survivor NSFW Maryland T-shirt. We're trying to work out the text so that I can actually put up a graphic of what I'm wearing. But yes, I mean, I live in Maryland. It's the Maryland flag. Had to wear that.
So what is Michael doing now? Am I allowed to ask? I'm asking this tentatively.
He's out of prison, I think, and I'm not sure what he's doing.
Nobody goes to prison for very long, so he's definitely out. He probably did a year, 2 years at the most for that.
Really?
Right? Yeah, he didn't do a lot of time.
Yeah.
So the irony with that was that the reason that they found the kiddie porn was that he was indicted for like running some Ponzi scheme, and for the Ponzi scheme, you know, he got probation. Whereas with the kiddie porn, I think they sentenced him to 4 years and he got out in like 2 or something.
Yeah, it was my understanding that they went through his computer because of the Ponzi scheme.
Exactly. Right. Once they grab your computer, right, they analyze it and they found it, and that's what happened. So he finally gets his baby pig. And the reason I was just talking about the chicken and everything, I mean, I'm sure there's blood. I'm sure that there's suffering. I'm not saying that there isn't. You know, I eat meat, but I understand it comes from animals. But with the pig, it's not even just that he's, you know, painting the blood on his face. It's that, you know, Nick said it was brutal, right? I think Elizabeth said it looked like a murder scene. And nobody said that about the chicken, right? So I'm guessing that, you know, with the chicken, again, you hold it by the neck and you could just chop the head off. He basically just had a knife fight with a pig, right? Yeah. You know, it doesn't seem like he did a clean slice across.
He came in through the neck, I think, and it's not a nice.
Right. Whatever he did, apparently, it was very, very messy. And Scoopin says,
they filmed that moment, and I was surprised there wasn't a lot more squealing going on.
I'm sure they could have made it much, much worse, but I guess they don't want, if you really turn people off strongly enough, they'll stop watching the show.
Right.
So they let us know that it wasn't pretty. Right. But that's how far as
let's go back to this from a production point of view. They herded the pig towards them because we've got film of the pig from a helicopter or something, or from a top shot.
Right.
That would have been difficult to get if you hadn't planned it.
Well, but again, the story that they're telling, and you're right, it could have been production, or it
Oh,
could have been.
look, I see a pig in the water.
There was a fire. There was a forest fire, and it is true that when there was a fire, the animals run and they run toward the water. So it could, and it's funny because Tim is now much more skeptical of production even than I am.
Oh yeah,
Meaning,
I'm with Tim on this one. Like,
yeah, I'm saying it could have gone either way
early on, so it could have been the thing could have wandered in. But who the
Oh yeah, no, when it was Sandra, and the goat in 34.
Afraid to kill
Here is my coup de grace, because the camera was so well positioned that you didn't see the pig being killed.
Right.
It all happened just over a little hillock. Now, to set that up by chance would be impossible. That was set up.
Okay, and like I said, I'm not saying it wasn't. Right. It certainly was good controversial TV, which is what they wanted. Now, so this happened again, Tim.
It's not unreality. It's not fake. Mm-hmm. But the pig was part of the magic act, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, because the same thing happened in 34, a couple seasons after Bret, that there was, and they didn't catch it, but there was a baby goat.
Yeah.
Right. And same thing. A lot of people say that they probably dropped that goat nearby.
Yeah, you mean like Jurassic Park? Where's the goat?
So here's the only thing I'll say about those goats were not wild. I mean, someone was herding them, and they were in where that camp. I stayed in that camp. That was our merge camp, I believe. It was originally the millennial camp, and you could hear the goats up at it. So every now and then, so someone was bringing them in, a farmer or something, to herd them up there on these fields.
Goats have a mind of their own. They're beautiful animals. I looked after lots of them.
So they
Tim has herded goats.
I'm not sure that they really wanted. I think the goats wandered in, but I don't think production, because they'd have to pay the farmer, because they weren't.
Right. And also, what you can get away with in Survivor 2, you cannot get away with in Survivor 34. Right? If there was a moment like this, I mean, yeah, you would have PETA and everybody else.
Right.
Because that's my thing. Like I said, I eat meat, and I keep kosher partly because it's all about humane slaughter. And so, like I said, if, Scoopin got into a knife fight with a pig, that's not how you're supposed to do it.
Right.
But I guess they did eat it, right? I mean, we have no reason to think they didn't. We saw it hanging up on a tree. Okay. And then they get away from it really quickly. But just
they stuffed themselves silly, frankly. They have eaten so much in two days.
Right. And it's also, which is also not great for Ogakor, who is already down one person, and now, Kucha has, I don't want to call it an unlimited supply of food. Obviously, it's not, but they're going to eat well for a few days. And then Bret, right? When one tribe is eating and one tribe is not, the tribe that's not eating tends to lose over and over and over again.
Yeah,
so that's kind of a problem.
You're tired and you're not. When you get food, or you win food, or you catch a big octopus. We got a big octopus that really filled our bellies. When I was in the Gen X tribe, that is when we were sitting there watching the sunset and just eating our fill of octopus. I don't know I can't explain it, but it puts you in such a good mood that. And you can do anything, and it definitely helps your mind. It helps everything, getting through the next couple of days. So, yeah, if you can be the tribe that's eating, you're definitely, helping yourself huge.
Right. So we finally get to the immunity challenge, and Tim, you spoke about this earlier, and I think you're right that it's a weird setup that they're like on the side of this. I don't even know what you'd call that tableau. Is that where tribal council is? I can't figure it out.
It's just across. It
is right there. Right.
They were
beautiful.
Same group of cliffs.
Right.
Have you been to Australia, Tim?
No. But I mean, looking at it, I'd be terrified.
Yeah, I've been there. It's beautiful. That's the Outback. I haven't been there.
Have you seen a kangaroo?
I have. I've seen a kangaroo, and I've seen a
koala.
Yeah, I've seen a koala. I've held a koala.
Have you held a koala? Oh,
you went to hang out with the survivors in Australia?
I did, the Australian survivors. Yeah,
that must be so much fun. They're so amazing.
Wow.
I've met Kirsty. I've
seen a wallaby too, which is a smaller version of the kangaroo.
Yeah.
Yeah, Australians are great, man. They're very friendly. Yeah, now
Well,
you guys
I love Australians. I've worked with a lot of Australians. I had a
I'm
wonderful.
sure, because they come and go, you guys can come and go from Australia and Canada, right?
Yeah, I don't think as easily as it sounds, but I remember working with some wonderful Australian and New Zealand singers, and they were just so gutsy. There would, no question about what they were going to do. They would just throw themselves into whatever they were doing, and I admire that. I mean, I just admire. People can get so pretentious about what they do, and I think the important thing is to recognise that we're all in this business of entertainment, and that's certainly how I would see professoring. I would just think this is entertainment, as you would see policing, of course.
I don't know, Bret. I'm sure that your fellow cops, know how funny you are. I'm not sure if the average suspect really gets your humor when you've got them in cuffs.
Oh,
do you ever actually joke with people?
Listen, it's not what you're seeing on TV. It's not what you're hearing in the news. This is like there's people that I've arrested 100 times, and I'm very friendly with them. They're people that we see constantly that we're friendly with. People that we've arrested that we see on the street that we get along with. Just because they did something wrong doesn't mean they always do something wrong, So it's not what you believe. So yeah, you have to have a sense of humor at work. You have to have no matter what job you have.
And I understand, and I am also one of those people who thinks that there are many great cops. There are unfortunately too many bad cops. I mean, I think you'd agree with that. But
not too many.
Now I'm going to go. Okay, but there's a few. There's a few.
The opposite of what you're saying.
There's a few. There's a few. But I'm saying, but when you're in the uniform,
there's probably less bad cops than what you're being told on the news and on TV.
No argument. My point is just when you're in the uniform and you're dealing with, it's not just the community, but actually people you're arresting. I thought that you would be more, no nonsense, whatever. But that's not your way of doing it.
That's not how anyone does. You're a human being, no matter what job you're doing, and you're going to treat people.
Brett, you can't have that many bad cops because otherwise, they're all in Hollywood, surely. You can hardly switch on it.
Very, very, very few bad police officers.
And I work for the Innocence Project. I do some volunteer work, so we're just going to have to agree to disagree on some of this.
I mean, that's fine, but unfortunately,
I think a small percentage can make everybody else look real bad.
Where are your stats on that? There's that many bad police officers? Because the stats favor what I'm telling you.
Again, no argument. I'm just saying that they certainly exist. There are people who frame people. There are people who lie on the stand. I don't think it's most people, but it definitely happens.
There's a lot of criminals that do that too. But there's not a lot of police officers that do that. We police our own.
Yeah. Oh, no argument from me.
Yeah. And there's also so many. There's so many rules and so much bureaucracy that actually prevents a lot of this happening.
Yeah, absolutely. There's checks and balances in place that have been working for years and work today. And it's definitely not the dire situation that the Democratic Party is saying that it is. It's not. It's absolutely not. And police officers, we come on this job because we want to help people, and because we saw things that we didn't like as younger people. And 99.9% of us are out there to help people and not hurt people. And unfortunately, way more police officers are killed every day than suspects. And it's extremely dangerous job.
It's a dangerous job. It is an important job. And like I said, I am not saying by any means that all cops or most cops or anything like that are bad. I'm just saying some are bad, because I have read some files that would set your hair on fire. Yeah, and I think if you saw it, you would say the same thing in some of these cases.
Yeah, but you could say that about any profession.
Well, of course, look, I'm a lawyer, and I would say the same thing. There's a lot of lawyers who shouldn't be practicing law.
Right.
I think it's true in any profession.
Yeah, but I'm reacting to the statement of there's a lot of bad cops out there, which that is absolutely 100% a false statement. I'm going to say that right now. Again, that's a false statement. The stats are just not with that comment.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying. I feel like one bad cop is too many.
Facts are not with that statement at all.
Yeah. Okay. And like I said, I'm not not here to argue with you about that. All like I said,
I don't want to argue either. I'm just saying, go look at Go look at the numbers. You can tell that that's not the case.
No, there I was. I was going to make a little parallel between the police and politicians, and then you started saying that so many police were getting killed, and I was thinking, that doesn't seem to happen with so many politicians.
No.
But I'm sure people have their little list. But,
unfortunately, because we're public servants, we fall into, what's happening now is we fall into the crazy political times that are going on, and they're gonna toss us around because they can,
Yes, absolutely.
So
absolutely. But at the moment here in Britain, we're in this ridiculous situation where the police are now being required to police ridiculous nonsense about people's parties and the rule of six and so on. And you think there's so many things which we need to get right, and we haven't got these things right for years, and our bureaucracy is creaking at the seams. Here is a time for people to actually go off and get these things right, and instead we're sort of we're forcing people to be occupied doing senseless stuff that actually people ought to know better and not be messing around transgressing, because it's just so silly, and we're wasting time.
Yes,
and we're wasting lives. And somehow we've got some very powerful speakers that have started trumping on about. Sorry, that was a mistaken word there. That have started talking about liberty as opposed to survival, and we need to self-isolate if we're going to survive.
All of this stuff is so complicated. It's incredibly complicated. All I would say is if you live in a jurisdiction where masks are required, please wear it, right? Because Bret probably also doesn't want to be giving people a hard time. I'm sure that I've been promoted well beyond being the mask police, right? But
I'm not telling anyone to put that's not my job. That
you're just not going to do it.
Liberties out there, you should be wearing it, and please wear it. I'm not going to ever tell anyone.
Put it on.
There's some very interesting research coming out at the moment, and one of the most interesting pieces suggests that the mask wearing can actually do something to seriously impact on the development of the disease. There's a fellow, a lady, I think called Gandhi, Monica Gandhi, I think, in the States, in California, who's identified one of the problems with COVID is that the disease seems to be more intense if you have a stronger dose of it at the beginning, and if you're wearing masks, that dose automatically is reduced.
It's going to be interesting to see what we learn after.
Right. No, we're still in the middle of it.
I mean, the other day I was in the hospital up in Oxford. And the little bit of the hospital that I have to go to is right next to the vaccine development place. And there was quite a lot of security around there who were starting taking photographs and stuff. And I was thinking, well, you've just taken buckets of blood out of my arm. And it was very interesting walking past that place and thinking, this is a place which is doing global work.
Yeah,
that's great. Anyway.
Yeah. All right. So back to Survivor. Something we can all agree on. We can all agree on that scooping is weird. Now I got to ask you also, Bret, because I have not rewatched Philippines. But was Scoopin? I mean, because Scoopin is really kind of portrayed here as a weird guy.
He is, and I think they try to bring him back to a little bit of normalcy. I
was going to say I don't remember him being like, because I didn't really remember him.
I remember him in a better light too.
Right, exactly.
I say that because when I watch it this now, I'm like, wow, he comes off as a psycho.
Exactly.
He's got slightly bulging eyes. He does look a bit sort of whacked out.
You're not so surprised about his criminal acts when you see him, with the pig.
Right. Although I would have thought that he would be involved in other things.
Well, I would be very surprised. Why I wouldn't trust somebody who was bashing around pigs like that. I wouldn't trust him to invest my money. I can't see how our Ponzi scheme is a pyramid scheme, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Because
when he did it, Tim, there was a lot of Ponzi schemes going around here in America. There was, right around that time, there seemed like you were hearing more and more about them.
Yeah,
and he was one of the ones that got caught doing one. So,
right. Because there was one which seemed to be central to the plot of The Good Wife.
Yeah,
what is a Ponzi scheme? And it did confuse me for a few episodes.
It's essentially white collar crime, So it's like people in stealing money, and people have no, So a lot of people don't have a clue how to watch their money.
In some cases, it's almost brought down a government.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Particularly who's that guy in New York that we had?
Madoff.
Yeah, Madoff. I mean, that's insane. How many really famous and extremely rich people that were throwing money at this guy,
right? Exactly.
And they didn't even see it coming.
Yeah, and like you said, most people don't really know what to look for. But those people who gave their money to Madoff should have known better.
Absolutely, they should have. I agree with you, Karen.
You just don't know, and somebody offers you a deal, and it seems credible at the time, and you're not maybe not thinking very clearly.
Yeah, you see in the dollar signs, not the. You're not.
Oh, you mean you mean you're greedy? So,
yes.
So therefore,
I shouldn't do that. I think that like with Madoff, that situation, people were seeing like these returns on their money, and people saying, "Hey, you got to go with this guy." He's and it was all fake. But yeah, I think you start to see that. You start to get. I guess that you could say that's greed, right? That's a little greed.
Yeah. Right, rather than just getting like a nice return on your money. If you're doubling your money every year, something's wrong, people.
Right. That doesn't happen every day.
Right.
Yeah. Well, this is what's needed for a good con, I believe. The hustle. You can't con really somebody who is absolutely innocent.
That's correct.
Right.
They must have a desire to get something, or they must be completely sort of confused.
Right.
I must say that the amount of times people direct message me with stuff about Forex is becoming extraordinary.
It's a huge thing in Israel. It's a huge thing.
I thought Forex was simply a misspelling of a wood. And they have this sort of look in their eyes, like the sort of people who first started selling computers. But you can just do such amazing thing with this computer. Why? I think of a computer rather like I think of a walking stick or a crutch. I mean,
sure.
And they'd say, oh, but with this computer, you could run. I'm really quite happy hobbling around on my own. I don't want the computer to supplant my brain. I want the computer to be a tool. If that means I sort of hobble around with it, that's fine. It's as much as I want. But now I find, my phone is dying. My computer is dying. Everything, technology has this sort of inbuilt, what is it? Decay,
obsolescence. Yeah, it's ridiculous to spend this much.
Like Doctor Who.
I spend $1,500 on this computer, and I know that 2-3 years from now it's going to be completely useless.
Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. Crazy. Is there any other? And if I go and buy a house, I expect it to stay up for
absolutely, exactly. Yeah,
for years, even after my death.
Yes,
But now we have computers, cars, watches.
I mean, like you said, 3 years, the computer's no good. Yeah, you might as well.
Yeah, max. Yeah,
I might as well replace it with a pencil.
It'll take longer. Okay, so we get to this endless immunity challenge. That is there anything you guys want to talk about? Because it's pretty boring.
It was really boring. I did wow. We watched this,
and apparently they were also really bad at it, because if you look, they had 6 or 8 steps, whatever, and they went through the tribes multiple times, right? Because I think, right, Alicia said something like maybe 3rd time's the charm, so they got to her 3 times, right, before they actually got.
Didn't you find it?
Ridiculous question? I mean, I can't think of any other. Why would I know that there's 9 poisonous snakes in?
Well, that kind of stuff, I think, they well, you should tell me, Brett. They give you something to read, right, about the locale that you're going to and what you can eat, not eat, and all that stuff.
So here's the interesting about the race and Survivors. In the back scenes, they'll be doing stuff like we took a bus ride in Tokyo on the race, and we had this crazy guy speaking crazy English who was talking, and he was named, and he was like, it was kind of a tour, and he was showing all the stuff, and we're writing all this stuff down like we might need it. And the same with Survivors, they tell you stuff, and you don't really have a lot to writing down, but you're kind of trying to think about stuff that might come back because you've seen it done on other seasons before where you have this information. And of course, on the race, we wrote all this stuff down. We never needed it again.
Yeah, and they had things like, so some of them I understood. Again, it's like because I'm assuming they did send them something, especially with the Outback. It really was much more wild and whatever. So they have to know what they can eat, what's going to bite you, what's poisonous, all of that. But then we also had things like, so with the tiebreaker question, it was like, you could start a fire. Like, what should you not do, I guess, when you made a fire? And one of the options was start the fire with a car battery. Mm-hmm. That doesn't sound like a great idea. Can you start a fire with a car battery?
Yeah, I don't know. So the only thing I can think of is they have
the battery.
Before we go out, you have pregame, and essentially they have you living in tents so that you're kind of acclimating. I think you could still take a shower in the morning, but you are acclimating to living outside. And, they do go through all right. And Fiji's easier because, Australia, everything will kill you. It's
right. Exactly. Yeah, and the Outback.
In Fiji, which really isn't that far away, it's a 3-hour plane ride. There's really not a lot of deadly things they were telling us about. There were certain things you couldn't eat by, the laws in Fiji. You can't kill this. You can't eat this. You can't hurt these. You got to stay out of this. So those kind of instructions they're giving us. If you see this kind of a clam, don't eat it. If it's bad for you. Or this fish is dead.
Don't break off pieces of the Great Barrier Reef, which we will see that later. That will happen later this season.
On that. So there's no, and of course there's production everywhere. So if God forbid you're getting into a situation where you're about to do something, they're going to stop you. They actually stopped us because we were going to kill a bat and eat it, and they're like, absolutely not. That will kill you. You're not going to eat the bat.
Well, that's kind of how we all got in the situation we're in right now. So I'm really glad you didn't eat a bat.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I think that so what I'm thinking is in Australia, in the Outback one, they probably gave them a huge briefing with all this information, and now they're making the people recall it. That's
my guess. That's my guess. Right. And they tried to make it more interesting by putting it on this, interesting tableau and everything. But, question competitions generally are not that interesting to watch. Mm-hmm. And in this one also, maybe I think they were probably surprised at how many questions they got wrong. That's because normally we would see the whole thing, but they were just kind of yada-yadaing through it because they got so many questions.
In the end, they didn't even tell us what the questions were. They just gave us some answers. Right. And I was thinking that one or two of those questions I was really excited by. I think, that's really interesting information. I never knew that. Yep. But they weren't really interested in giving me information.
I never knew that you're not supposed to put wet rocks near fire. What happens?
Yeah, I didn't understand that either. Did you know? I had never heard that before in my life.
Me either.
Not starting a fire next to some loose next to some loose rocks, I think is very wise advice.
I was always told that when you're making a campfire, you put rocks around it.
Yeah, right. So it won't come. Yeah,
right.
I don't know. That was bizarre. But it was kind of an easy challenge, It was kind of like, So it's kind of interesting to see how the challenges kind of evolved, So.
Right, and they will do question challenges again, but they won't be this boring.
Right.
I was disturbed by the the runoff at the end of that, but then I was much more disturbed by the final runoff in the council.
Yeah. So Ogakor loses. They're going to tribal council for the third time. So they're going to be down 2 versus Kocha, right? Because we saw this on Borneo, right? It's very, very important in terms of when you get to the merge. Mm-hmm. How many people you have versus how many people the other tribe has.
It is pretty well a repeat of what happened in Borneo.
You mean as a Pagonging?
Yeah.
Not really. And we'll get there. Yeah, that's not. Well, I mean, there's parts of the season that are going to get boring, but not necessarily for that reason. But Colby tells us before they go to tribal, Colby tells us that he says, there's a pecking order. The young people have all gotten together and they've decided who's going, which tells me I think they're going to vote for either Keith or Tina. Like that's my guess. But Colby says I don't really agree with that. So I'm thinking, so maybe it's not going to be Keith, well, especially if it was Keith.
I was all ready for Keith going.
Right, but we see Colby bonding with Keith more than once in this episode.
Mhm.
So I think that's probably what happened. I think they were probably planning to vote Keith off next.
Yes.
And Colby decided that that's not how he wanted to do it.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Brett?
Nobody changed their vote.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But what were you going to say, Brett?
Yeah, it seemed like Tina and Keith were definitely working over Colby. That's what I was feeling in the episode. And
Right.
and so, you know, it was tribal lines weren't as clear as we
and they're being really quite aggressive about it, you know, saying, "Oh, he can't make up his mind. He's always switching."
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that was Jerry said that, right?
Yeah.
It was Amber, and she was getting nervous. She was getting a little nervous, and that was actually a really good scene. I enjoyed that because it shows how cunning Amber really is as a player.
Yeah. Absolutely. And
some people say that Amber is just, you know, kind of a prop and in this season, and I really don't agree with that. I don't believe in that at all.
No. And we hadn't seen that much of her up to that point. Exactly what you're saying. She's presented as sort of prop and is not.
Right.
No, she's paying attention. And I love that. I actually really like that scene. It's she's definitely, it shows Amber's paying attention. She's in class and nothing's getting by her. I really like that.
Yeah. Because when people talk about the season, a lot of times they talk about her like, she's here because she's pretty. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons she got cast, but not the only reason. Right. So we go to tribal council, and this is also funny. The Probst, you know, basically mocks Ogakor. He says, you know, Kucha bagged a pig. They're kicking your ass. You know, did we ever see Probst do that again?
No. Have you ever seen Probst shake as many hands as you've seen him shake in this?
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
And
he doesn't like to touch
crazy.
people.
Like he's not, like he's just more like now he's on the other side of the beach from you, you know.
Right.
And he's going up high five and everyone else. It's like, get out of here. This isn't.
Yeah. So Tina tells us that there was, you know, this new plan that was hatched on the way over, and pretty clearly that was they finally get Colby. So they vote, and we get 3-3. Right? Colby, Tina, Keith all vote for Mitchell, and the other three, Mitchell, Jerry, Amber, all vote for Keith. Right. They have a revote, and this is true to this day, right? What happens when you have a tie in Survivor? This part is still the same. The first thing they do is they revote, and he does give them an opportunity to speak. And Keith is great here. Keith says, "I work hard. I won't give up." What does Mitchell say? He said basically agrees with Keith. He says, "I want to beat Kucha." He says, "I'm physically and emotionally trained. I can't compete with Keith's strength." And you would think that would probably change the vote, but it didn't, right? It's still 3-3 because, again, in the end, people hang with their friends, right? It makes sense, you know, because this person is not going to vote for you. So even if he's telling you, I'm 8 feet tall, I weigh 100 pounds, I'm starving to death, they still wanted to keep him, right? And so then and Tina, we talked about Tina getting a little spicy. She gets really spicy on the revote. She says, "I haven't starved out here to keep the weakest person around."
Yeah, as a former survivor, I don't remember that scene, but watching what's that kid's name? Mitchell. That's a quit. That's a quit, in my opinion. Like,
absolutely, I just felt he was quitting with that speech.
When you say, "Hey, listen, he wants it more than me, or he's in a better shape,"
right, exactly.
That's a quit. Right. You just said, "Vote me. I'm done. I'm done." And I don't think you shouldn't even be out there. Like, and I don't think you would be nowadays. Like, I don't think you would. You know,
but we don't know how much time had gone on before he came to that point.
Yeah.
3 hours of sitting around a campfire.
Right, but we saw before he'd been talking, and even in the previous episode, how hungry he is. And again, because he is very, very tall, and he was very, very skinny when he first went out there. He had no weight to lose.
Tim, it's interesting you say that because some of those travels do go really long. I don't know how long back then they were going, but I was at tribals that went really long. But I still have to say, I don't know anyone from my season that ever would have added those words. Hey, listen. Vote.
I could well imagine doing it in some circumstances, and in fact I did do something not that dissimilar, but I was told I couldn't. But you know, there's just a point at which you just think, oh, for goodness sake, I've had enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I recognize that in what he was saying.
Right. So the fact that he said it, right, is not as surprising. The part, like I said, that surprised me is that it didn't change anybody's vote.
Right.
You know, I think
Well,
if somebody done it on your season, Brett, I mean, Jessica would shank you if you told somebody like, "Oh, I just want to go home." Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all would. But like, to me, that there was no quitting. There was never. I was never going to quit. I do think that there's people that. I think there's people that may be out there that thought it but would never move on it.
Do you when people feel they do want to quit, do you then get sort of psychiatrists coming over and talking to you and saying, you know,
not during the game. I mean, listen, don't get me wrong.
They do it on Big Brother.
That's a breakdown during the game. And we've seen this. Karen can attest. Yep. We've seen that they have brought in people to talk to them and stuff like that. But for the most part, no. If you're just quitting, I'm trying to think. We did have a. If you're just quitting, they're gonna. They're gonna let that play out. Essentially, is the best way I can put that. And then afterwards, they might bring somebody in. But like, if someone's having a mental break, like say Russell's nephew there,
Brandon.
Brandon, and nothing against him, but he was having a time. I think they definitely would have brought people in to talk to Brandon and stuff like. So there were people. If someone was getting dangerous or if they thought it was danger to somebody else, they would bring somebody in.
Right. If you're just over it, they'll let you go.
They're gonna let them quit. They're gonna.
Yeah. And we do have a real quit in a few seasons. And it's amazing. Like, remember Pearl Islands with Austin, right? Where Probst just says, go. Like, he doesn't even really, snuff the torch in a normal way. He's just like, Austin, by your choice, go home. I think that's what he said. Like, he's not kind to quitters.
Right.
You see, there's another thing here, and that's that. I don't think I really know who Keith is, and B, I don't think he comes across as terribly likable, and I think that's probably why Mitchell retained his votes, because if it's a choice between Mitchell and Keith, I know which one I would choose, and I would keep choosing that person. And I think people who were voting for Keith were voting slightly by default anyway. They probably knew that Mitchell really in his heart wanted to go.
Right. But they were not going to make it easy on him. So then we get to the final tiebreaker, and they no longer do this, but back in those days, the final tiebreaker was the previous votes.
Oh, I thought that was so unbelievably unfair.
Well, but they know about it. My thing with all of these things is, as long as people know going into the game that this is how it works. I didn't know about it, Karen. Oh, okay. And so you were.
And I can tell you now, if I had been watching this in real time, and I wasn't doing this for a podcast, that would be the last program, the last of these programs I would have watched.
I
am prepared to watch it again.
And I think Survivor hears you, because we had a similar tie in my season. Yeah, and what happens is so you have a tie, and then they cancel out, and then those people, you can't vote for them. If you have another tie, then we go to rocks, right? That's the new way to do it.
Rocks.
So, we go to rocks. So you
explain to him what that means.
Yeah. So what we had was an absolute tie. I can't remember. I think it was 5-5.
5-5. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so the two people that got voted, they were safe. Oh no! First, he says you can go think about
first
it.
Revote. Right.
Revote. We had a revote, and again we came out with a tie. So then they said, okay, those two people that you were voting for are now safe, which is exactly what they did last night in this episode. Mm-hmm. And then they said everyone else will now vote again. So I don't know how we did it, but again we came up with a tie. We couldn't come up with a decision on who to vote for. So then they said, all right, we're going to rocks. And what you do is you reach your hand into a bag of rocks. There's like 6 or 7 black rocks. One.
Have you not seen what is it? The thing about the man who goes, Flash Gordon. Have you not seen the scene in Flash Gordon where you stick your hand in the thing and you've got these sort of monsters?
Yeah. It's the same idea.
And it's
same idea for the person who picks a white rock.
And the woman, like I said, so I just alluded to her name is Jessica.
Yeah.
She's also a podcaster. I've met her, wonderful. But she was just her sobs, right? That so again, so it's not, she was not getting any votes, right? There were 2 other people who were up for elimination, but this is how it works. If you can't, it's a lot of pressure that you better make a decision as a tribe, because if you can't make a decision as a tribe, this is what we do. One of you is going to go home.
She should have voted Hannah.
And yep, and she was in no danger. She was going to be there for a long time, and that's how she went home.
Yep, and she could have voted Hannah, and she would have stayed. But it's funny because that's how we felt, though, and and we all did think there was no way we could all come to a consensus and get further in the game if we didn't go all the way with it. So that's where we went, and things changed, and even in the next vote, things changed huge. So it's amazing how every 3 days on Survivor, if you can just get 3 more days, everything changes. Everything can change. It's crazy.
Yeah, right. Understand entirely.
So we say goodbye to Mitchell, who seems like a nice guy. Like I said, supposedly he's a singer-songwriter. I did search him, didn't find anything, so I'm assuming. But I did do a lot of research. There are people from this season I want to talk to, and seems like a nice guy, but he's not one of them. So I didn't really chase it down.
I wonder what happened to Mitchell.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah,
never come back on Survivor. It was a quit.
I would like to meet Mitchell. I think Mitchell's somebody on my list.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, like I said, send me your list because I will do what I can. It worked. No, it worked last time. That's how we got Hatch because Tim made it clear that he really wanted to. Yeah. What do you think? I knew Hatch would be a great podcast.
I warned Hatch very, 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 very early on.
Which that's the part that really surprised me. Right. I did not think you were going to like him.
Oh, great guy.
Really?
Yeah.
No. I like personalities. I don't really mind so much what people do. I just like somebody to do something boldly. However, not quite as boldly as Michael. Michael.
Well, that's not bold. That's stupid. Right?
Michael doesn't endear himself to me. Jerry, I find Jerry fascinating.
Jerry is kind of fascinating. She's
very
strong-minded.
More fascinating than I think than Tina. For me.
Mm-hmm.
And I am interested in the in the sort of negative bias with which she's presented,
which will only get worse and worse and worse. Like I said, they will not let this go. They will beat this horse for 10 years with Colby and Jerry.
Yeah.
So that'll give you an idea.
I also very much like Roger. And I liked Cal or Kel.
Kel, yeah. Kel just didn't give me anything. I'm sure he's very capable.
I thought he had a lot going for him.
Right. On paper. Right, and he was probably the person on his tribe who's the most comfortable out of doors, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of being an interesting character, and maybe he was a military guy, right? They tend to be kind of buttoned up, which is not good TV. No? What do you think of Bret? Bret is having deep thoughts.
No, sorry. I was just trying to figure out who you're having on next week. That's all.
You don't remember who goes home next week?
No. I was just looking it up, and it's a good.
It's going to be fun.
I'm not allowed to know, am I?
No, don't tell him. Don't tell him.
It's better to watch the episode first. But
I'm already slipping sort of visually into darkness. It's sort of
yes, I see that.
So what was my question, Karen?
What
was the question, Karen?
I don't even remember. Do you remember this?
Oh,
but there's another question I have to ask you before we get off of this. I've not forgotten. Before we started, I was asking Bret, I said, I set this up. I said, you're about to be on my show, so maybe this is not fair because, I got you by the proverbial balls. But who is DJ Labelle Klein? And this is the whole thing on RHAP. We talked about this, and they do these parody songs. And there is this guy who, as a pseudonym, is DJ Labelle Klein. And apparently it's kind of a joke because everybody knows who it is but me. And Bret said he wanted to talk about it on the podcast. So this is your chance.
Yeah. So he's a Rob. I do know who he is. He's a great guy. I don't know if we're supposed to say, though. So I don't know. We'd have to ask. I'll have to ask Rob. But so here's the interesting. So DJ Labelle Klein is a huge Survivor fan. He's also a huge Rob as a podcast fan, which I know. Yeah, it's okay to talk about on NSFW because
we're big fans of Rob's podcast here.
And Rob, so Rob and Wiggler, and I don't know if they're still doing it, but they used to do the wand off.
They're still doing it.
Okay, good. And so DJ LaBelle Klein would submit these parody songs all the time, and they're fantastic.
Yeah.
And I guess he started right after my season, so he named himself, because Adam Klein and I were friends, and we were on the season together. He nicknamed it himself DJ LaBelle Klein, which I think is absolutely hysterical. And oddly enough, one of the funniest things that ever happened was I was in my first leg of Amazing Race. We just landed in Japan, in Tokyo, and we're going to the airport, and there's two Americans come up and go, "Are you Bret Labelle?" And I said, "Yeah." And the kid goes, "My brother is DJ LaBelle Klein." And I said, me and Chris are looking at him, go, "You have to be kidding me. Like, we're in Tokyo." So we said, "We love your brother's songs. They're absolutely hysterical." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, no, he's a big fan of us." I was like, "Oh, good." But I have met him. I'm not sure if he wants his name out there.
No, but that's why I wasn't asking you. I wanted you to tell me, not to tell the whole world.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's become kind of a joke, because apparently everybody knows who this guy is except for me.
Yeah, great guy, though. And I have him, and
I have a feeling that when I do find out it is somebody I know that I've interacted with.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely big in the Rob as a podcast.
That's where I wanted to know.
So
yeah.
Great.
Right.
But what an amazing maestro, I call him. He's just amazing.
Oh, the amount of talent there is out there is just amazing. No,
Yeah.
They were doing it even so. What they did over the summer was that they were kind of, because there wasn't a season, there wasn't Big Brother at that point. They were doing so they did the first episode of Borneo, and then they did the second episode of Australian Outback. And it wasn't like Africa was number 3, but for like the third episode, they would pick like the greatest third episode from any season. Mm-hmm. And they were even doing the wand-offs and all that with that. So that is continuing. I did fall off listening to that, because now that like you make your own, the time that I used to spend listening to other people's content, I now spend making my own content. So I can't follow it quite as I used to, but I love the wand-off. It's, it just kind of happened. Well, like many things, it almost happened by accident. It was to be a one-time thing. And they're still doing it.
I love it too, and I obviously huge fan of Rob.
Yeah, and so Tim, I should send you, because they did write songs for the second episode of this season.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, because they did also. Because again, that was a big. That was the episode where Kel goes home with the beef jerky, which is a big Survivor episode. So so I'll send you the links for that.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to hear. I love songwriting and so. And you also sing as well, Bret.
Yeah, I mean, I sing karaoke, but I get up and sing at the live know-it-alls, and I have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, he sings their theme song.
Live show, and he's got this crazy song, and I somehow figured out a way to sing it. But I have a lot of fun, and Josh Wigler will come up and sing with me. It's a lot of fun. Well,
and if you guys ever do write lyrics for this, we will definitely, if you want to sing our theme song.
Ben Driebergen, who's a former winner of Survivor, he and I have been trying to collaborate, and a couple times we almost had the song done, but then we missed it. We missed the cutoff. So I think in the future you will see Ben Driebergen and Bret Labelle doing a wand-off song to try and win it. So
because for you, not surprising at all. But I didn't know. So does Ben sing? He writes songs.
Yeah, Ben does a lot of stuff.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
Ben's a
I met him. He was a great guy.
Isn't
but
he's a really good guy. There's so many good people in the Survivor world. It's really fun. I don't know how the Circle world is, Tim, but we have a lot of really good people.
I've not met anyone I don't like. So is that's what the comedian used to say? What's his name? He was big on Broad.
What's his name?
I've never met a man I didn't like. They wrote a musical about him.
Oh yeah.
Somebody's Follies. But anyway, I can't remember. It's gone.
So anything else about this episode or life in general that you guys want to touch on?
No, it's cool to meet Tim, and
it's cool to meet you too. I mean,
I'm sorry that I have to be the bad cop sometimes. Sorry, it's an expression, and force you to talk about the episode rather than just listening to you guys talk. Because
Karen, you do a good job. You have to keep it moving. We would still be talking about London, and we didn't even get to the talk too much about the Tower of London. So we would still be talking about London right now if it was
absolutely
around,
Absolutely.
And if you want to talk more about London, that's totally fine. Now that we've covered the episode, talk about whatever you want.
No, I got to get back over there though. So Tim, if I come over, I'll let you know, and we can come and stay with us. And I'm sure you're a rugby fan as well. I like I like football, rugby. I like it all. So
there we are. There we are.
We have a team here. Well, I mean, it's not professional, but we do have people that play rugby here in Boston because, of course, you know,
my freshman college roommate was a rugby player, and they used to have like competitions for the Brews of the Week. It's a rough game.
Harvard have a lot of rugby. Harvard, yeah.
I was made to play it when I was 8 or 9 years old, and I found that my trick was to go and hide behind the big H at one end of the field. I was terribly thin in those days, and I would take my copy of Lord of the Rings and try and get in a few chapters while everybody else was and
sounds like me and Jim Clash at about that age.
They made me play in the rain and the snow. My copy of Lord of the Rings is really shredded to pieces.
Yeah.
They would be like, Tim, put your book down and come play rugby with us.
I read the first one. It's really good. Like Lord of the Rings, it's really good.
Oh, it is Lord of the Flies, I think. Or Lord of the Rings or Lord of the Flies?
Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings. I read Lord of the Rings so
Tolkien. J.R.R.
Yeah, okay.
so much, and then I do remember somebody saying, "Oh, you like Lord of the Rings? You'll like Lord of the Flies." I didn't, and I still find it a bit of a sort of one horse pony book. Once you've got the idea, it's you've got it. I think Survivor brings this story to life in a way that Golding sort of completely fails to do. So it's quite nice to see that the basic premise can have life, and quite interesting life. Yeah. One of the problems with Lord of the Flies is the characters aren't there. So I'm not invested in the characters, whereas here with Survivor, I am quite invested in the characters.
Right. And what's interesting about Survivor is I can remember saying this before I was on every season. I don't like I don't like these people. I'm not into these people. There's nothing I'm going to find. And then 3 episodes into it, you're like, oh my God, I love these people. It's crazy how you have you just kind of get invested in the story,
It's the basis of how you write a good story. You trap people in a situation where they can't leave, and you see what happens. Why are we surprised that we had all those sort of disaster movies in the 1970s and early 80s? Because that was a great way to write a story: trap people in an elevator or at the top of a skyscraper,
right.
Or the Poseidon Adventure on a ship.
Yeah, Poseidon Adventure, turn the ship upside down. Right. It doesn't matter what we do as long as we trap a small number of people and try and make them sort of follow their way out.
Climb the Christmas tree, follow.
Follow the
Gene Hackman. Follow Gene Hackman to safety.
And I was thinking, for some reason, when you said that, it just reminded me of something about following someone. I'm thinking about following you up that mountain in Amazing Race in Tokyo. That was so. You want to set that up, Brett? Because I just can't.
Yeah, so I was wearing this skin-tight suit that they made me wear, and I had to have this orange hair on, and I had to get up this mountain. And, of course, I'd never watched Amazing Race before in my life. I binged 2 seasons, but right before I went, it didn't help me. And I just totally missed the fact that you're supposed to get a clue, which made me look like a complete fool. So I got all the way up it was like this big blow-up, slippery water being thrown. It was like something out of a Japanese game show.
Exactly.
The Japanese game show. You had to, and they were pouring water on it, so it was slippery. And of course, the first time I went up, I flew right up it because I was dry. The suit was dry, and so I get up and I go, all right, I'm up here. What was the point of being up here? Now, meanwhile, there's 3 clues right next to me. All I had to do
it's like just out of reach. He just had to see it and grab it, but he didn't know what he was looking for.
No, so I said, well, I'm coming down. This is stupid. And Chris is like really ready to kill me and so I get down and I'm like, what? Why did I do that? And everyone, like, Chris is like just shaking his head
because he can't tell you, right? You're not allowed to coach.
Why can he not tell you?
I turned and looked up and I see the clues and I go, oh my God, I didn't get a clue. I was up there. I had to get a clue. So I had to go back up. Well, now I'm covered it's slippery. I'm all covered in water and I'm trying to get up and hijinks ensue.
Yes.
Did you manage to get back up?
I did, yeah.
Yes, you did. But it was, there were so many people just yelling at the TV. But Tim, in terms of why you can't, that's the rule. So some challenges are both of you, but often these challenges, it's just one person and the other person gets to watch, but they are not allowed to say anything.
That's correct, yeah. So it was a good season though, right, Karen? I mean, you liked
it was so much fun.
Yeah.
It was so much fun.
Yeah,
and my theory now with, now that they can't really film Survivor, well, Amazing Race, we know that they have a season in the can.
That's coming out.
Finally. Like, you want to talk about having to wait? Didn't that cast have to wait like 2 years before
Absolutely. Because we waited a year before ours aired, and they had filmed theirs, I'd say the October after we filmed ours. So they've been waiting for 2 years. It'll be 2 years by the time it is.
You can't tell anybody. Also, you don't get your money until it's shown, right? So somebody won $500,000, right? Two people won the $500,000 each, and they don't get the money. They can't talk about it until it actually airs.
It never is. They never get the money. So if they canceled the show, I think they'd be out of luck.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so. Given the rate that they're going on.
That's in the contract.
Look, I'm a lawyer. If it's in the contract, it's in the contract. But that sounds rough. So it's especially now, like given that the Amazing Race has been on its last legs for years, and that's the show originally. 20 years ago, that's the show I would have liked to have gone because it was less physical, and I had a lot of experience with travel and all that. I can handle myself in there
with your slide.
What's that?
It sounds fairly physical with your slide.
It in the show gets even more physical than that.
Right, but it's less physical than some of these Survivor challenges.
Oh, I disagree.
Really?
So I will say there's some things that were much harder. I felt, because I feel like mentally you have to overcome a lot, like heights and stuff like that with with the Amazing Race. So and
the Amazing Race, you go to different countries or you
it's a race around the world with a slightly different map every time in terms of they start and end with somewhere in the US and then they go either direction in these weird itineraries, and some places they have visited more than once, but that's because I love travel. I mean, I've always loved it.
And what's cool about Amazing Race is where you go is actually the show, not so much people.
Of course. So where did you go, Bret? You went to Japan?
We started in Los Angeles. We flew to Japan. From Japan, I think we went to Laos. And then from Laos, we went to Vietnam. And from Vietnam, we went to Dubai. And Dubai, we went to...
what did you do in Dubai? Were you meant to get on a camel?
No, I wish. They've done that in the past, though, right, Karen?
Oh, yeah.
In the past. No, I got to... I ran around in a dinosaur suit looking for dinosaur eggs.
Oh, that was so funny. That
was funny though. It made for good TV. And then the other thing we did was there was a couple of things we did there, but we didn't get to do anything like you would think we would do in Dubai. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was kind of more. I mean, the place is a lot like Vegas. Like it's like
it was. Dubai was kind of presented less as part of the Arab world and more as just like an even more extreme version of Vegas, which in a certain way it can be.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of weird. So, but we had a lot of fun, and then we went to Uganda. Switzerland's beautiful, man. I'm sure you've been.
Isn't it just? Yes.
Oh my God, it's breathtaking. Everyone says, "Where's your favorite place on the race?" And I have to say, Switzerland. I said, and I never would have thought that. I was like indifferent to going to Switzerland. I was like, oh well, go to Switzerland. And then you get there, you're like, oh my God, it was everywhere you look just takes your breath away. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, Bret, what was it like being in Uganda as a gay man?
So it's disturbing. It's disturbing because you know the history of it, and I learned a lot more because Corey and Tyler are very into. They've actually helped people get out of Uganda. They've been a part of that, and gay people. So it was, and I would see that they were way more in on the history of how Uganda treats the gay people. So I could see how concerned they were getting of going there. And, I know that I was definitely not, I was like, well, why are we even going here? Like if it's bothering, these two guys have been on the show before, they're, why are we going there if they're that much bothered by it? But
right. I mean, I feel like they're very safe because, you're with an American production company. Nothing's going to happen to you.
Right.
But I can just imagine for me, like I said, as a Jew, as an Israeli, there's certain countries that, I would be physically safe, but I would have some feelings about going there.
Absolutely agree with you 100%. And I did have feelings about it. I didn't like it. I will say one-on-one, I met some wonderful people that I interacted with there. So you kind of go, okay, yeah, the government has these things, but people are people.
Oh, yeah, and I'm sure that not everybody in Uganda agrees with the government policy.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely not. You could tell that because I'm sure that there's a lot of people that would like to, would run the country differently. But I just say it definitely makes you uneasy where you can't be yourself. And if you are, you could be in trouble. That right. And I said it, on a confessional that never made it. I said, it makes me just think of how lucky I am to live where I live. It really is.
Yeah, that in the year 2020, that people are still being killed. It's hard to believe.
Ridiculous. Yeah,
it's hard to believe.
And anywhere else?
Then I went to.
That's pretty good for a month. I mean, the whole show is not that long. How long did you film for, Brett? Like, is it around a month?
You filmed for a month, yeah.
So you can just imagine how hard it is. Like I said, do that
production ended up in London too. So they ran through the town. They jumped in one of those old cabs, taxis. And then where did we go? We went to Split. Yeah. What the hell's country's that?
It used to be in Yugoslavia, right? So I don't know which one it ended up in now.
Yes, good question.
Croatia.
Right.
And I got to be honest, I loved it. I loved Croatia. I really.
I have friends who've been there. They said it's gorgeous.
Have you been there, Tim?
I've not been to Croatia. I've been to Serbia.
Okay.
Actually, I probably have been to Croatia, but when it was Yugoslavia, I got stuck there, and I actually stood on the footsteps of Princeps. In Sarajevo when they exist. I don't think they exist anymore.
Tim has so many stories. How did you get stuck in Yugoslavia? Do you want to talk about it?
I can't really talk about it that much, but I was moving up from I was moving back from Greece in 1988, and I wanted to take a sort of scenic route, and I got stuck, and I got into a bit of trouble. It was entertaining, some goats. And I got very nicely rescued, and I made my way. I found it so difficult doing trains, because it's certainly possible to go by train up at that time, but you were stopped at every single border.
That's what's so cool about you folks living over in Europe is that you everything's right there. You can like everything's an hour plane ride away.
I thought it'd be great fun to go from Greece via Venice, and I'd got it all plotted out. I never did get to Venice, by the way. And I've still never been to Venice. It's one of the great regrets I've got.
Tim, we have something in common. I've never been to Venice either. So.
Well, no, maybe we should go together.
There's definitely a show just in Tim Comes to the U.S.
Yes,
right.
And Tim has to have been to the U.S., right?
Yeah, he has. But
I have been to the US, but I'd very happily come again. I just think it's I think it's the most vibrant place, and there's so much to learn.
You should check out. You should come to Hearts of Reality. That's
no, we definitely. This is usually in August. I mean, this year it's in December because of COVID, but yeah.
I was trying to think what sort of programs could I make, and one which I don't think is going to go anywhere because it was also fixated on isolation. I'm thinking, we're about to go back into another lockdown. I could do a program called Tim Does Time. What would it be like to be in a submarine? And I thought I could be in a Turkish submarine because my partner was a Turkish submariner, and it was this would be so entertaining. And I could go to a prison and I could see what it was like to be in a prison, and most amusingly, I could do an episode in the army.
Basic training. That'd be great.
Tim or take them to the police academy and make them
police academy
or something. You can set that up, right?
Absolutely.
Well, there you are. There's a good one. But I thought it would be a little bit like you have guns, and it would be a little bit like somebody said to me, would you do dancing on ice? And I was talking to the professionals who do it, and I said, well, I don't know how to skate. And they said we'd teach you, and I said I'd scream, and a great television.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they would have so much fun with you. Yeah.
I think somehow dancing on ice and haemophilia don't really go together terribly well. But
that gets you off the hook. Yeah,
but it didn't stop my school thinking I should be playing rugby.
Rugby,
So,
really.
Yeah, really. So we just sort of take it on the chin, really, if you could find the chin under the beard. But there's an option. Set up. Tim does Police Academy, and I will be over there in a shot. I'll row across the Atlantic for you.
I see a full-length documentary coming from Zontal.
Right. Yeah, there you are. You see, no, it's
right. Rather than Tim watches the Australian Outback, you know what? Tim does the U.S.
Well, I could go from Police Academy in America to the mountains in Canada. That would be hilarious too. Yeah, it'd be great fun.
Beautiful country. That's where my grandfather was from.
Isn't it gorgeous? I mean, there's another place I've not been, and I really want to go.
Yeah, I mean, you want to go in the summer months, but there's so much to see up there. It's a great country.
Yeah, and on the other hand, we'll see if Tim still likes us if we take him to Florida in August.
Yes, that
is the one problem with that.
Florida in August. I mean, you just think Disney, and I'm away.
It's so hot. It's so hot and so humid.
I've suffered Greece and places in August, so they're very hot as well. And I've never been. I don't think I've ever had a month, except when I was in the circle, when I was just doing one job. I've always done 2 or 3 jobs at the same time. So I was always teaching in Greece and illustrating or writing books. And I found in the middle of the summer, when everybody else was having siestas, I was busy churning out these illustrations, and my pen was slipping out of my hands. It was so hot. And trying to draw on a computer, really, really difficult.
And Florida in August, right there.
Yep. Oh, it's hard to describe how humid it is. All right, so should we put this one in the books?
Let's put it in
let's do it. Let me just do my housekeeping. Tim, where can people find you on social media?
Oh, well, in the dark at the moment. We'll
get you a light for now that the days are getting shorter.
Normally, I must confess, I switched the sitting room light on, and today I thought, oh no, we'll be finished well before dark. And no, I'm sitting here in a sort of penumbra, and in the gloom. So you can find me on. Where can you find me? So in YouTube, you can find me on Zontul Films Limited. That's ZONTUL FILMS LTD. And each week I say I'm just about to release the first book of Milton's Paradise Lost, but I'm still just about to release the first book of Milton's Paradise Lost if I can get my act together. And then I've got some other bits and pieces on the way. And then on what's these other things? Instagram. I'm Professor_Tim_Wilson, and Twitter.
He had quite following on Instagram.
What? Do you follow me?
I just did yesterday. Yeah, I saw you in the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang scene. I thought that was hysterical.
Yeah, that was fun.
No, it's so exciting. I think I got a recording me singing that song somewhere. So maybe that should be.
Give your Twitter. I didn't mean to interrupt. Give your Twitter.
But isn't Chitty Chitty Bang Bang superb?
I love that shit.
Every Thanksgiving, right?
And the Twitter is Prof_Tim_Wilson, and that's it. That's me, really.
What about you, Bret? Tell everybody where they can talk to you.
Well, they can find me at Bret Labelle on Instagram and Twitter. Both of them, same name. 1 T, folks, 1 T. And that's it. That's where I'm at.
Okay, and you can find me, as you see it, Karen Talks a Lot is my Twitter. Coming up on Survivor NSFW. So last night we discussed the current season with Andy Herron, the winner of Big Brother 15. That was fun. I think that has already dropped. And then Thursday, as always, we will be live after the eviction. The 4 of us, it'll be me, Johnny, Matt, and Zach. We're trying to be optimistic about this season, but it's getting harder and harder. Hate to tell you. If you haven't started watching Big Brother 22, Donnie's going to shoot me for saying this, but if you haven't started the season, don't bother. That's how bad it is. Also on NSFW with Cobra Kai, they did a 3-hour podcast, which is not so long for us, but for Johnny, it's pretty unusual. It was a joint project with My Weekly Meltdown, and I think the War Dog and Victoria were both there discussing that season. Also, if you enjoy our programming, be a patron. We do lots of fun stuff. I talk about it every week. You want to hang out with us, get to know us a little bit better. If you want to know what I'm like when I'm high as fuck at night, that's one of those perks that you get as a patron. Because I'll go on these Zooms with the patrons, and after I take my edible, and they seem to find it amusing. So that's another patron perk you can have. It's totally medical weed, Brett.
It's legal in
Massachusetts.
It's
that's right.
Legal in Massachusetts.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So here it's
enjoy.
It's
Take your edibles and enjoy. Nobody.
Yep, that's good stuff.
Tell Johnny I said hello, will you?
I will. So next week, I already said this, that we were going to be joined by the person who will be booted in that episode. And I think this might be the first podcast that this person has ever done.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, they have not done a lot of press about Australian Outback in a very long time. So
is that somebody I've mentioned today?
I don't remember who you've mentioned today, but it's somebody in the season. You haven't said anything bad. Well, whatever.
I guarantee they haven't watched it, Tim. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they would also, and if they were annoying on the show, I think they would agree that they were annoying on the show. It was 18 years ago, you know?
But so again, it'll be good to see the background from someone who's played it.
Right, exactly. And then you
get fascinated.
But you also get to see this person 18 years later, right? So that's the thing. You're not going to get to meet the 2002 version of this person. You're going to meet the 2020 version of people.
I'm so looking forward to this. It's going to be a great revelation. I won't watch it until Monday or Tuesday. So that's fascinating. I was going to say, I many years ago I was a great fan of Richard Wagner. And his operas, and I found I could get the records, and they were all on sort of 33 and a third. And if I pressed the knob, I could play them on 78, which meant it all happened so much quicker. I was thinking maybe we could encourage people to view this sometimes on 78, because we do tend to go on a little bit.
It's funny, people do that all the time, Tim. When people listen to podcasts, it's very common for people to speed it up.
Can you speed it up? So I would sound like Pinky and Perky.
Yeah, exactly.
Yay. How wonderful is that?
I can teach you. I can teach you how to do it, Tim.
I don't think you should teach me any more tricks, Karen.
You can slow it down or speed it up.
And what would my laugh sound like if it was sort of twice the speed? That would be extraordinary.
A hyena sounds like a hyena.
It already sounds a little bit like a hyena. So if we speed it up, I think on YouTube you can take it up to 2x. I think on some podcast apps you can even go faster. I don't do. Yeah, like I said,
it's weird.
I don't enjoy it, right? But some people. So
Brett, what would it sound like if you read somebody their rights, and then we speeded you up?
Yeah, I mean, it would go very fast.
Well, I think we get that. So we probably don't get that in the UK, but here, they do these television commercials for drugs, and they have all these disclaimers that they have to give. So at the end, that's the thing, they turn it up to 3x. Yeah, you can't even understand what they're saying, but they said it, so they're covered.
Right.
How wonderful!
That's exactly what it sounds like.
That's
right. I'm looking forward to this. I think you may have to teach me how to do this, Karen.
I will. Okay. So again, next week, same time, same channel. Everybody, please stay.
A real pleasure, and thank you, Karen.
Yeah, stay safe, stay healthy, be careful in every way, and we will see you next week on Survivor NSFW Rewind. Bye.
Bye-bye.